What's checking, everybody? Welcome to House Divided on a Decision Day Wednesday. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Chad Hastings. We're going to be with you for approximately the next 3 hours. You never know. It kind of depends on how maybe storytelling goes today. We'll get into that in a little bit. Don't worry. If you were around for yesterday's show, Yes, it's Hump Day, Hooker Story Day, or is it Hooker Story Hump Day? I'm not sure. I was going to tell a story yesterday at the end of yesterday's show. Chad decided we all thought it would be a better idea for me to not try to rush such a thing into 360 seconds. So later this hour, I will get into some storytelling.
Yeah.
It is Kobe Black, the consensus 5-star defensive back, cornerback from Waco Conley, will be announcing at 4:20 today. So we'll open the show up with recruiting, with some portal combat. We'll get into some storytelling. I've got numbers from the playoff quarterbacks at Michigan and Alabama that we didn't get into yesterday, that we've got that. Oh, by the way, Chad, it's the 10th anniversary of the Red Banquet at Belmont Hall today.
So that's why this super chat starts us off today. We need your craziest Red Banquet stories too. Ben, already ready to mark the anniversary?
Now, we did not work together when the Red Banquet occurred, so you and I didn't share that experience.
No.
It's easily the signature moment in the history of orangebloods.com, and I think up until this season, it has kind of defined Texas football for half a generation. So that I feel almost obligated to do double storytelling time today, Chad, because it being a 10th anniversary of such a monumental day. I have never in my entire life seen Texas fans as angry, like want to get in a riot level anger, as I did in about a 12-hour period on Friday the 13th back in 2013. Thanks to Chris Bennett for, I just kind of out of sight, out of mind with so much stuff going on in the world. Didn't even realize it was, in a lot of ways, it feels 30 years ago, but it was only 10. We'll go through some of those stories. I'll go through my story of that before the show is over. And then I also have like a weird question I want to throw out at some point, Chad, and it deals with Turnover Tuesday.
Okay.
So when you're ready, I don't care when, but when you're ready, remind me to ask the Turnover Tuesday question. I think the chat will have some interesting responses because the question I'm going to ask you, I don't know the answer to.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
But it is turnover related.
Gotcha.
And we can do that at some point during the show. I suppose we just need to start with recruiting, though. Again, Kobe Black, the 5-star cornerback out of Waco Conley, who has for months been kind of the prospect that everybody's asked about, talked about, probably from the moment that Colin Simmons gave a commitment, because then there just weren't that many in-state guys at that level to still wonder about, ask about. Chad, he's a phenomenal prospect. Defensive backs from the state of Texas with his recruiting ranking hit at an incredible rate. I mean, defensive backs, the highly rated ones, and really even just somewhat highly rated ones from the state of Texas, are typically worth their weight in gold. They make it to the end. There's some combustible positions, and I can even give you some stats on that whenever you want them. But it's just a position that, who is Kobe Black and why does it matter? Because a guy like him with his profile more likely develops into a first round-ish type of talent, a top of the NFL draft type of talent than most positions across the board in high school football recruiting. So he's a big-time player. the percentages suggest he's got a chance to be an elite of the elite player, and the Longhorns need a player like that in this class.
Well, it's a huge position too. Obviously, we were talking about yesterday when we were finishing up the show yesterday. You were throwing out the let's make a deal discussions of a certain type of corner versus a certain type of running back, and defensive backs anyway are so important. But one of this level is obviously a big deal. 4:20 Rogue Time is when he's going to be announcing today at Waco Conley. And remember, keep it at Orange Bloods Live all throughout the day. Jason Sukamel is going to be there in Waco. Jeff and Alex will jump on at 4:00. So make sure, circle it, get your notifications. This is why we say get your notifications. Like, subscribe, get your notifications. It's all free to do that. But once you get those notifications, your phone, tablet, whatever it is, will tell you, hey, there's a show about to start on Orange Bloods Live. And today at 4, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be Kobe Black deciding where he ends up. All indications are it will be Texas. It becomes official at 4:20. Ketch, I wanted to ask you this question just to kind of give me a little perspective on this. Theoretically, if A&M had a better year, let's say 9 wins, and Jimbo Fisher still had the job, do you think Kobe Black would be a house divided kind of guy? And do you think the season A&M just had just pushed him towards Texas more? Because I remember us discussing Kobe Black with Billy Lucci of Texags way back. Like, season hadn't even started. So I'm just wondering, how much do you think that's a factor in Kobe's decision?
I mean, the expectation that I had from the people that I talked to behind the scenes felt like eventually A&M would be a major player. So, the kid shows up in the summer to visit Texas. It's long been reported, rumored, however you want to say it. I'm curious if he'll be asked about this today and how much he'll talk on it. But I've had a lot of people tell me, by a lot, probably like a half dozen different individuals who've told me, Kobe Black committed to Texas way back in the day. So we've had graphics made since the summer. I've got my instant analysis piece from Orange Bloods that I prepared. It looks like on August 13th.
Wow.
I'm going to use most of it. I got to tweak it a little bit because sometimes maybe the wording from what I would have written in August, it's been written. I've had it saved, ready to go. But while it's always felt like I think he's been a Longhorn lean, I think there was a suspicion going into the year that one season after losing Anthony Hill to Texas and then watching Colin Simmons go to Texas, there'd always been a sense that, Kobe Black's going to be the last mega recruit in the state of Texas that announces his recruiting decision. And are the Aggies just going to let Texas get that one too? So there'd always been, I think, some speculation from people close to the situation on the Texas side that felt like, keep your head on a swivel. We know that there's motivation to keep Texas from getting all of these guys. It starts stacking up and suddenly, it's not just a one-off or, an occasional thing. Suddenly it's like, hey, the best players are going to Texas, and that's not what. So the thought was eventually maybe the Aggies, it might turn into a major NIL battle, that the Aggies would say, look, we've got to get a guy like this. I think that the Jimbo thing, dismissal, the discussion leading up to his dismissal, as much as anything else, right, that the very thing that caused the change, I think, has always kind of kept, when you start worrying about your job, flipping guys who aren't leaning to you don't typically become the priority. So it just never felt like A&M ever really got in it. And so consequently, he's been to some Texas games this year, even most recently in November. He's gone to a bunch of Oklahoma State games because his brother plays at Oklahoma State and is a starter at corner there. And that's kind of all that's happened in the last 6 months of his recruitment. He's gone to some, and I think part of the reason maybe he didn't commit early, and again, I'm curious to see what he says after his commitment is announced today. I think everybody is expecting Texas. Oklahoma State is the team, and his brother is there, and I think it would shock the hell out of everybody, but that's the competition. And I don't think anybody else really made a move. There haven't been discussions of he's gone on a visit here or he's taking an official visit there. Yeah. It's been eerily quiet, probably nervousness making quiet for Texas fans who are like, why has he not announced? The longer this goes, it feels the worse it could possibly be. And in reality, he's just been kind of going at his own pace. I think if he commits to Texas early, perhaps it makes constantly going to Stillwater an issue. It might just, even with his brother there, it might look like something you'd have to worry about. So if you're not committed, you can just go to all the Oklahoma State games you want to, and it not constantly be why are you going to Oklahoma State? Is there anything to worry about? And I think I'm just curious if some of this has been about, I just want to keep the leverage that allows me to do whatever I want to, because the moment that he announces his commitment today, the expectation will be he signs on the 20th, that, a week from today, that he's, doesn't take any more visits. And clearly that's not such a big thing a week before signing day, but it becomes the expectations nonetheless.
Okay, so most old men, when it comes to recruiting, want it to be simple, and maybe you send out a quick tweet, but you know me better than that. The crap bag wants a show. I love a good hat game, shell game, bags, boxes. I want a performance. So if he plays the hat game today, Ketch, and we assume a burnt orange and a bright orange, if there are other hats, what's your guess? Let's say he throws 4 hats down. What are the other 2?
Well, A&M would be one.
Okay.
And the thing is,
early on his list didn't he have Oklahoma and maybe Ohio State in the early list?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, he's visited A&M roughly 5 times.
Okay.
So from a volume standpoint, there's no question you could make a case. He visited Baylor a couple of times. He visited Florida in April. I mean, that's almost about as recent of a visit as you're going to find.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma would have a hat. So probably A&M, if you're going to do 4, I think it would be OU, A&M, Texas, and Oklahoma State.
Gotcha. And at this point, as we get ready for 4:20 this afternoon, correct me if I'm wrong, his brother has still not gone into the portal from Oklahoma State. Is that correct?
Correct. And you can also look, Ohio State, he visited in the summer right before he visited Texas.
Okay. So
you could have an Ohio State, but he hasn't, I guess I'm listing from a top 4 of the schools that he's visited the most. But if we were going off of official visits, you got Texas on June 23rd. He visited Ohio State the week before that. He visited Oklahoma the week before that. Those are the 3 schools that he's on record for taking official visits to.
Gotcha. And again, that's 4:20 this afternoon, 4 o'clock. The Kobe Black Orange Bloods live special will crank up with Alex Dunlap, Jeff Ketchum from our end of it. And then in Waco, Jason Sukumel will be there at Waco Conley. So it is Kobe Black Day today. Ketch, when you say a corner that's rated like he's rated has a big-time hit rate, are you just speaking about college success, or are you also speaking about how it projects towards the pros, or both?
Both.
Okay.
I think there's some Jeffrey Okudah in him. We're looking at 5-star defensive backs from the state of Texas. He jumps out. I wouldn't necessarily compare him to Caden Stearns because Stearns is a safety. So I'm just talking about the most recent 5-stars that we've seen.
When's the last time you think Texas got one of these?
A corner like him?
A corner like him.
In-state, you'd have to go back to Curtis Brown back in 2007.
Okay.
I mean, it's been a while. You know, these used to be the kind of guys that in the heyday of Mac Brown, they got a lot. Texas hasn't signed, you know, historically. I got to remember. Hold on. Let me just make sure that what's in my head isn't outdated by a year. But Texas hasn't historically in the last 10 years when they've emerged from the state of Texas, Texas hasn't been getting a lot of these guys. So it's a big deal. Even when you look, they get Malik Muhammad a year ago, so he'd be the closest comparison.
Okay.
But before you got Malik Muhammad, if we go back to from the 2022 class on, let's see, from a safety standpoint, pull up my data again and make sure that I don't screw this up. Sorry. Hopefully my connection on this show's not bad. It doesn't look real good on my internet. Terrence Brooks was another guy recently that was a high 4-star. Mm-hmm. So they've done a much better job. Clearly, this would be their third consecutive year where they would have gone out and signed a super blue chip type prospect. Before that, though, DJ Monroe in 2008, Curtis Brown in 2007.
Gotcha.
So before they get Brooks and Muhammad, before that, there had been a gap when we're talking about the cornerback position going all the way back to 2007 and Curtis Brown, who was obviously an NFL level player. Where did Curtis get drafted? 3rd round from the Steelers back in the day, if I remember that correctly. So, Sark's been able to get these type of guys coming in. And look, the two guys I mentioned, they're not in the playoffs this year if they probably don't have Terrence Brooks and Malik Muhammad. Maybe that's a little bit of an overstatement, but Brooks has been a season-long starter. Muhammad has been, in their corner rotation, has played a lot of snaps this year. Those two guys are going to play on Sundays. They've lived up to their hype so far, and that counted on almost immediately as guys that need to play and start almost from day one, and that's who they've been. And now the last step for, I think, a guy like Brooks and Muhammad is to go be great. I think they're both very good players. Muhammad hasn't played as much as Brooks, but, there's an evolution that by year 2 or 3, you'd like to see these guys, if they're going to live up to the hype of a 5-star, they start to become kind of difference-making level players. Still waiting on Brooks, and I think expectations for Muhammad next year will be that he starts to emerge as that kind of player.
All right, we're crawling up towards 300 in the Specs chat. Ketch, we've already got a super chat in with a question regarding the Red Banquet. I know we need to get to that anniversary. We also need to get to some Portal Combat. I'm going to make you tell the hooker story. So at this moment, anything else we need to mention on Kobe Black before we move to Portal Combat and where the Longhorns may be looking?
Well, no, but I do want one more before we go to Portal Combat, one recruiting note involving House Divided. We talked a lot yesterday, certainly in the first hour, about Jasper linebacker Tai Anthony Smith, who's committed to Texas A&M. You asked me yesterday where I would put my money if I was going to put money on whether that kid signs with A&M a week from today or Texas. I said Texas because the expectation as of yesterday that he was going to take an official visit to Texas this weekend. As of today, as of like an hour and a half ago, that visit appears to be off. And my expectation now, 24 hours later, it says a lot about what sometimes expectations can be worth. Right now, the expectation, I think, would be he sticks with A&M, although there is some suspicion that this thing keeps changing by the hour in such a way that maybe he's hopeful that he can sneak into Austin and nobody know about it. Like, it'll be something I think we have to continue to monitor daily when you're talking about a guy who, I don't want to say wishy-washy, but he's kind of on the fence. I mean, yesterday he was coming. Today he's not.
Right.
So who knows what it will look like in a couple of days. But the latest there, what's fascinating about this is I don't personally view Tai Anthony Smith this battle you would think was over Kobe Black. And, I think Tai Anthony Smith is a really fine prospect. I don't think that either class is like doomed without it, but approaching signing day, the biggest hand-to-hand combat battle between House Divided right now is 1,000% over Tai Anthony Smith, the A&M linebacker commit, again from Jasper.
Interesting. 1 week from today is signing day. If you didn't realize it, remember this evening is the SEC schedule release. I'll get into some of that in the crap bag, including the 2 SEC schools that apparently had their schedules get leaked. Not Texas, not Texas A&M, not Oklahoma, but 2 other schools. Apparently you can see the whole schedule if you want to. We'll get into all that as we roll along. Thank you for jumping into the Specs chat. Ketch, is it time for Portal Combat? Are you ready? Are you ready to go?
Man, I'm just trying to think, from a recruiting standpoint. Yeah, let's do it. Hit it!
Portal Combat.
Round 1. Fight! Get over here! Finish him!
Ooh, more pictures, more names, more guys flying. Ketch, let's get into why maybe Texas is seeing red, but that's not a bad thing when it comes to the portal.
I think maybe the biggest piece of news from yesterday that we wouldn't have talked about yesterday because it happened after the show ended was that Houston wide receiver Matthew Golden officially entered the portal. He announced it yesterday as opposed to a week ago. I don't even remember who the first person was to report that Gooden was expected or going to enter the portal. But when we talked about Golden yesterday on the show, I mentioned it's been really quiet and there hasn't literally been a single report of a rumor, anything. He's just gone underground. Yesterday, he announces officially that he's in the portal, which seemed to be the official announcement for now you can expect to see some stuff being reported. Or at least occurring. As about 20 minutes after he made his announcement that he was going into the portal, Texas running back Jaden Blue, who was a high school teammate of Golden back in the day, did the eye emoji.
Mm-hmm.
The one where it's exactly. He did that eye emoji.
The anti-meme.
As I've been reporting for about a week now, ever since the first whisper that Golden was going to go into the portal, I have been hearing that there's a preference for Golden over the Juice Wellses of the world or the kid that committed to Oklahoma yesterday. Sorry, was Drake? Why can't I remember his name? Who's the kid that committed to Oklahoma yesterday?
Burks. Deion Burks.
Hey, thank you, Deion Burks. I don't know why I just wanted to call him something completely different. I had heard that from a preference standpoint, Golden is ahead of those guys. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if in the next 24 hours, we hear that Matthew Golden sets up an official visit to come to Texas. There's been a lot of whispers that one could be further. I think there's even a crystal ball or two, a future cast, depending on the network. It wasn't anybody from Rivals, but maybe somebody from 24/7. Can't remember who, but so apologies. Put in a crystal ball for Matthew Golden to end up at Texas. I think that's his most. I have not heard that it's definitely done, but I know there's an incredibly strong amount of interest from the Texas side, I believe, and we'll see. I think that unfold. Then Houston had another guy get in the portal, and again, talking about a guy that, ironically, this guy's probably been rumored more than Matthew Golden at this point, although it seems like maybe there's some uncertainty about where this thing's going to go. A defensive tackle from Houston by the name of Jamari Caldwell, second team all Big 12 this year, Chad. 2 sacks against Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So they've seen this guy up close. He performed against that Texas offensive line, 6.5 sacks on the season, 8.5 tackles for loss on the season. He enters the portal, and there's been some conversation that he could end up at Texas, although Bobby Burton, one of our competitors over on the Texas YouTube airways, I believe, reported last night that there's some academic issues that would certainly need to be ironed out, worked out if he was going to be a candidate to go to Texas. He's got a little bit of a tricky academic resume in that he was at a junior college before he went to Houston. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think he qualified coming out of high school. I think that may have been the issue why he had to go to a junior college. So something to keep an eye on. Texas is desperate for defensive tackle help, so I'm told. I've heard that they've been talking to several, that there's at least some level of communication with a number of guys, but names at that position haven't really revealed themselves, which is one of the reasons once Campbell put his name in, I mean, it was like a Kardashian dropped a thirst trap. I mean, Texas, it was defensive tackle. There he is. Yeah. We'll see. I think Matthew Golden of the two, much more likely to happen. But it could be an interesting visit weekend because it wouldn't surprise me if a name or two of guys that we've been talking about for the last week plus end up in Austin this weekend. And it probably gets reported the next 24, 48 hours.
Yeah, the other thing I think it's important to keep in mind overall with the portal is this Friday is, of course, the 15th, which makes next Monday the 18th. And if my math is right, Ketch, the 19th is when the portal closes. So in terms of importance of visits and when you could say you're in the portal, you can only say you're in until like next Tuesday. Then you'd have to wait all the way till after the championship game. So there's just an extra time reason why these next few days could be really important. So keep your eyes peeled if you're a Texas fan on Matthew Golden and Jamari Caldwell, both out of Houston. Both are now in the portal. Ketch, speaking of guys that were wearing red, and I guess I'll wear something else, this Kaden Green story continues to fascinate me. We mentioned it yesterday, maybe middle to the end of the show, but Kaden Green, talented offensive lineman out of Oklahoma, freshman stud, all-American level kind of guy, goes into the portal. But am I reading it correctly? He just no-showed the bowl practice? Like they didn't know he wasn't going to show up, and he just didn't show?
They were at practice yesterday, Chad.
Like I saw an interview with, what's the new quarterback? Is it Jackson Arnold? Is that his name? My man had to answer questions. Somebody had to step up to him from Sooner Scoop or wherever it was and go, "Hey, Jackson, so did you hear that Kaden Green is transferring? He's in the portal. Did you guys hear any of that? Or what's the, no?" And he's got to go, "Yeah, I haven't heard anything. The coaches haven't told us any of that. I was assuming that Kaden would be out there. He's not? Really?" Like the media essentially told the starting quarterback at OU.
Well, they knew that he didn't show up.
They knew he didn't show up, and then the media tells the quarterback it's because he's just jumped in the portal?
Yeah, man.
What?
And apparently it caught, like the OU coaches had no idea. None. Apparently like 5 or 6 days ago, he was welcoming incoming recruits to Oklahoma. And then 6 days later, 5 days later, deuce.
That is
I've read on OU sites across multiple networks. You mentioned Sooner Scoop. I jumped on Sooner Scoop yesterday to see what those guys were reporting. I know them best. No offense to our current Oklahoma site. And it sounds like not only was it a gut punch, but it was like a sucker punch. And it sounds like the OU coaches are trying to talk him out of the portal, but I don't know. But yeah, that's a rough one.
Ketch, that's like showing up at the wedding and having somebody else at your table tell you that your date broke up with you, like in the last couple days. Oh no, she didn't tell you that she dumped you? Like, well, no, we're supposed to come to this wedding together. Well, I haven't heard from her. We were meeting we were going to meet in 10 minutes.
Can you imagine
by the buffet?
Us doing a show where, I don't know, DJ Campbell did that? And just, what?
Yeah.
He's a starter. He's got a game. They're counting on him. And look, there've only been whispers about where he might be going. We mentioned he's from the Kansas City area. Mm-hmm. So KCM, not KCK, although I don't know that it totally makes a difference. But he is from the state of Missouri. There's some talk that he could go back to Missouri, and that this is all speculation that I've read on OU boards and reporting that, maybe if he went back to Missouri, they would let him play tackle, whereas at Oklahoma, he's been starting at guard. Yeah, man, I don't know what else to say other than, yeah, that's messed up.
That is messed up. Some other portal things that jumped out to me,
Catch.
Real
quick, Chad.
Yeah.
Sark would tell you if somebody did that to them, he says he would just let them walk, right? Because they got a culture. And he mentioned, like, if a guy goes into the portal, like they would just let him go, which is not entirely accurate because they sure talked Xavier Worthy the hell out of the portal.
Right.
There have been some other guys that were never officially in the portal, but were about to be in the portal. And so technically this kid may still be in the about to be entering the portal phase and not officially in the portal, kind of like Matthew Golden from the last week up until yesterday. If the kid does that to you, do you try to talk him back? Because let me just tell you right now, if the relationship version of this, you're using a wedding analogy, I feel like it's even more serious than that. Maybe like a destination wedding. We're all at the airport getting ready to go to Bermuda.
It might literally be somebody coming down the aisle to tell you she's not coming. Like you're the groom, and they come down the aisle to tell you not only is she not here today, it's over. Like, what are you, huh?
Because now everybody knows that he did that.
Right. The answer
for how you walk. He quit on the team.
He did.
And they're trying to talk him out. But if that was me, but then again, teenagers are different than us, right? Like I have my 47-year-old man sensibilities. Maybe teenagers would be like, oh, it's okay. He can come back. But it feels like you said, what his teammates went through yesterday and kind of having to cover his back without really knowing the details, right? Like one of his teammates was like, well, I expect him to be back because he hadn't told me anything different. It's like, ugh. And those guys shouldn't have been on the front lines answering those questions.
No, it's bad. So, I mean,
Bianco, whatever we think of the Texas SID office, John Bianco would never leave the players hanging out to dry to be forced into a situation to speak on something that they just don't know about. Like, I was a little surprised that the OU SID offices didn't protect the players because I think that is an uncomfortable situation. Jackson Arnold, in his first time to meet with the media since becoming the starting quarterback? Hey, what about that starting offensive lineman that's in the portal that you don't know that's in the portal? Because I'm telling you right now, he's in the portal. Comment, please.
Yeah, that's rough. That's just, it is. That is absolutely rough. But obviously a name to keep an eye on where Kaden Green ends up. Quick empty of the list from me, Ketch. The A&M update's easy. LT Overton is visiting South Carolina, Bama, and Florida State.
I think he's in Alabama this weekend.
Yeah. Deuce Harmon, a DB from A&M. He's into the portal from the 20 class. 4-star guy out of the 2020 class. He's been a solid player for A&M. He's into the portal. Not a portal story, but Edgerrin Cooper officially goes to the NFL draft. That's completely expected. 7-5 team. Hell, if they were a 9-win team, I don't know if Edgerrin Cooper would play in a bowl game. He's worried about, the pro stuff. And then Catch on the quarterback front. DJ Uiagalelei is going to visit Florida State. Says he's pumped about that. We talked about how important the Knowles decision is. And then Kyle Van Dyke, who we talked about yesterday, has found a new home. He's going to Wisconsin. Interesting move there from Miami to Wisconsin for Kyle Van Dyke.
DJU to Florida State. is just rich with irony should that happen. From Clemson all the way across the country.
Yeah.
Now back all the way across the country to your number one former rival. Like and
then you'd face Dabo next year.
The person inside of me who likes to stir the shit loves that.
Yeah. Oh my God. And by the way, if he does end up if he ends up there, then obviously you'd look at Dante Moore, the next guy that we've been talking about, the talented young guy that was at UCLA. I haven't heard any visits that he's been taking. I know we talked about maybe Ohio State with him yesterday. Do we know any visits for sure with Dante Moore? I haven't read about any.
No.
Okay.
Not yet. I don't remember seeing in the last 24 hours.
I haven't seen that.
I'm on, look, I'll just check real quick, but
yeah,
I gotta be honest. I wasn't. I dared to step away from the computer for like 5 seconds, so it's possible that I could have missed something. By the way, I am gonna have a buy or sell question for you for Draymond Green today.
You probably need to. Yeah, I was gonna do one for you, and then it didn't happen, so you probably need to have one for me in that case. So yes, we'll do that. We will also have story time with Uncle Ketch today. Not only the hooker story, but he's got to tell some Red Banquet stories because it is the 10th anniversary, thanks to Chris Bennett and others who have reminded us. It's the 10th anniversary of the Red Banquet. People have already sent some super chat questions wanting Ketch to respond to that. So we've got to get into both of those things.
Hey, so I got breaking news.
Breaking news before.
Can you give me like a breaking news sound?
Dateline, Woodlands.
According to a report from Pete Nakos of On3.
Yes.
As of 8 minutes ago. So like it's literally breaking news. Dante Moore, official visit starting tomorrow at Oregon. On top of that, Clemson safety Andrew Makuba and Kansas State safety Kobe Savage are reportedly making the trip to Oregon as well. So no Andrew Makuba to Texas, which had been reported a week ago was in line. And as I've explained this week, maybe some transfer course stuff making it complicated for Texas and Makuba, something to keep an eye on.
Interesting. All right. Dante Moore to Oregon, from UCLA to Oregon, a classic Pac-12 to Big Ten move. I've seen it my whole life. Okay. Dante Moore. Somebody.
So what did I interrupt? I'm sorry.
Track up. We need to get a little prime shrimp in before we get to story time. So tell them the story of prime shrimp, and then we'll get into your other stories.
Well, you want me to tell you about prime shrimp?
Yeah.
What's there not to tell you about prime shrimp? It's the best damn shrimp you can order. I wish Bubba was alive so that Bubba could do an endorsement for Prime. Because Bubba would have loved prime shrimp because they've got all kinds of shrimp to choose from at an incredibly affordable price, easy delivery, easy preparation, great taste. It's just checking boxes left and right. Scan that QR code. It'll take you right to Prime Shrimp. You can go to primeshrimp.com, but I would just say scan the QR code and get to shopping. Again, you're going to be able to get individual meals that you want for about $12. You're going to be able to have them heated up and ready to serve in about 10 minutes. Great meal, great price, easy to get ready. If you're a parent and you've got kids, trust me, I had to cook a hamburger this morning for Hendrix at 6:43 this morning so that I could have it ready to have go out the door, which also included me having to make a run to the grocery store to get a goddamn bun. Because I'm a good dad that way, Chad. And it took like 50 minutes, all told. If I just made him some prime shrimp, it would have taken like 10 minutes and I could have slept in. There we go. Prime shrimp. Scan that QR code. It'll save your life.
Yeah, thanks for somebody scanning that code right there. A quick chat comment about Dante Moore. Ain't going to transfer just to sit behind Gabriel. Yes, remember, Dylan Gabriel is already transferring to Oregon. So would Dante Moore transfer to Oregon as well? He is much younger than Dylan Gabriel. Would he think about sitting as a.
It's a great point because
he's had his true freshman year, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know if he's had. So technically, I guess he had the red shirt. So he'd be giving up a year to sit behind Dillon Gabriel.
In theory,
yeah.
The thing is, guys don't waste visits. We can say he's not going there to sit behind Gabriel, and Juju Juice may be right. I think it's the smart, aware take.
Mm-hmm.
But, and look, he'll have time to take more visits. Not immediately, I don't know, man. That one throws me for a little bit of a curveball because guys don't have enough time to take play trips. And usually the first trip for most of these guys is the only trip they take. Some guys will take a full allotment. I don't know. We'll see. I think what Juju said, by the way, I like saying that over and over again. For some reason, that's not a tongue twister for me. Juju Juice. I don't know. We'll see. I'm almost as intrigued that they're bringing in both of those safeties at the same time on the same weekend. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Makuba since he's gone into the portal. I think, again, I pointed out on Sunday night, I think I was the first one to report it, but the Makuba thing, while looking like a layup early on, there's just some transferable credits and how it all would work that makes it really complicated as things stand with Makuba, and he may just be looking for options that don't include the trickiness of apparently what a Texas transfer would look like.
All right, Ketch, here's my future cast on the next little bit of the show. I think the Hooker story needs to be next, which I think will take at least the rest of this hour. We'll get buy or sell in, and I think the Red Banquet discussion may end up being in that 115, 120 area. That's my future cast. We'll see what happens here. Are you ready to tell the Hooker story?
Man, I don't know. I haven't told it in a while. I was rethinking it in my head, and I was like, well, do I give 95? The thing is, what I would tell everybody that's watching, if you've got kids in the car, kids around the house, this is a fairly PG. It peaks for a moment at PG-13. It's somewhere between a PG and PG-13 story. It never gets so salacious as a crime has been committed.
Okay, fair enough. Let's have it.
Even if attempted crimes were trying to be made. So I want to say this was 21 years ago in March. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that you and I know. I cannot believe I'm telling this story. How exactly did I trap myself into this again? I volunteered it, right?
You did. You volunteered it. End of the show yesterday. That was a Hooker story. Do we want to
what
fit
was
it in?
What made me think of a Hooker story?
I'm not exactly sure what happened, but that was right at the end of the show. And I made something got referenced to prostitution, and then that's what brought it up.
So it's 21 years ago, and a guy that you and I know and have worked with was getting married.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was the pregame for the wedding. I can't remember, but we were somewhere the Friday night before. This is in Austin.
Rehearsal dinner is what you were going for.
Yeah, the pregamer.
Yeah, they don't.
And you call it a rehearsal. I call it a pregame meal.
Okay.
A mutual friend of ours.
Mm-hmm.
But really, mostly more than anything else, a friend of the groom.
Mm-hmm.
He and I were hanging out.
Okay.
And we decided we were going to go to Dallas nightclub after the rehearsal.
There you go.
The pregamer was over. So we go to Dallas nightclub. Again, it's 2003, 2004, I think, maybe 2002. I can't completely remember. Somewhere around there.
Yep.
And we go to Dallas nightclub, and it was just slow. It was kind of dead. And this particular gentleman, who I just need to say from the beginning, he's the kind of guy, I love him to death, But if he's the kind of guy that if you were going to have a hooker story and it was with a friend, it would be this friend.
Gotcha. And you're still friends with this
guy that took me and the groom to Sugar's once and spent his entire scholarship check at a Sugar's to show us a good time on a random night in December back, like same time frame.
Fair enough.
He's a fun guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, hey, do you want to go to the Yellow Rose? He was a little bit tired of Dallas nightclub. I was like, sure, let's go to the Yellow Rose. So we go to the Yellow Rose. The Yellow Rose is packed. And we get a seat, but we didn't got any. None of the dancers are coming over to our table. We got a bad spot. We were trying to get into the VIP lounge, but it was full.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at one of these tables, and he's like, hey, you want to just get a couple of hookers?
Wow.
And I was like, what?
I got to get new friends.
And he was like, yeah, like what? Let's go do that. I feel like we should be doing that on the eve of our friend's wedding.
My man escalated the night twice, for the record. That is double escalation I've never experienced. Please continue.
And eventually, I'm like, well, who, how, what, when? What do you? He's like, let's go get an Austin Chronicle, and we'll go to the back page, and we'll call up one of the ads on the back.
Dial a hooker.
So this story gets so foul. Thing is, it was, I think, UIL basketball weekend.
Okay.
Or it was South by Southwest. Regardless, there wasn't a hotel room in the city.
Okay.
And I couldn't go back to my apartment. I couldn't have a party at my apartment. And I can't remember what his situation was. But if we were going to do this, we needed to have a hotel room.
Gotcha.
So we're driving around Austin at every hotel room we can find. And he's on the phone calling these ads up. He ends up like connecting with somebody. And he's like, if we find a hotel room, we'll call back. And anyway, do you know the Holiday Inn that used to exist at 183 in Mopac? It's tucked away. Like in what would be the south, no, maybe like southwest corner of that intersection. You know, if you've got like Dave and Buster's, it's across the highway from Dave and Buster's.
Yes, I've been in that hotel for like a work function, like a holiday, some kind of intense radio work meeting, but I was not going for the same reason y'all were going.
So I had some doubts, but my man was like, look, if you buy the hotel room, I'll pay for the ladies of the night.
Seems like a pretty good deal for you.
It did feel like a good deal.
Feels like a good deal. Yeah.
And I'm just telling you, when you're with this particular guy, he just has a way of making you do things you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah. And that's saying something, because you're kind of that guy too. So it's a guy that makes you do those things. That says something.
I mean, the difference between me and this guy is like, he's the type of guy that would shit his pants on a drive from Houston to Austin and not pull over and change.
Wow. That is a weird way to describe it.
I wouldn't do that, is what I'm saying.
You would stop. Yes.
Oh,
right.
yeah, for sure. Probably be very distraught over it, completely honest, if such a thing were to ever happen.
Yeah.
So we find a hotel room. I pay for 2 hotel rooms. Mm-hmm. He sets up the arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like 3:00 in the morning.
Wow.
It's taken a while. I mean,
yeah, this took a while.
It took a while for everything to come together.
Yeah.
Finally, knock, knock, knock. We're at the door. We had them come to my hotel room.
Right.
Open the door up. There's 2 ladies of the night.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a very awkward, like, hey, come on in. So they come in.
What's up?
Yeah. Hey, nice to meet you. Somehow very naturally, we chose our girls.
Okay.
So my friend and the lady of the night that he was with, they go off to their hotel room, and I'm left with my new friend, right?
Yes.
So about 10 minutes of small talk goes by. And I'm like, okay, well, so how does this work? Because I've never done this before. So this is a bit awkward, you know?
Sure.
Like, so how does this work? And she's like, oh, well, what do you mean?
Starter pistol.
And I'm like, well, what do you think I mean? Like,
confetti.
Do you just get naked or something? Do I need to get naked? Do we need to get naked together? Like, what needs to happen?
He wanted a script.
I did.
You needed a script and a cinematographer for this thing?
A script would have helped.
What's my motivation? That's what I'm wondering.
And she's like, well, I was like, well, you're a hooker. Like, I had to explain it to her.
Here we go.
You're a hooker, and we paid for you.
You're a hooker. Fade in.
So, like, how do we get started with the hookering, right? And she's like, oh, no, you don't understand. I'm an escort. And I'm like, well, what the hell does that mean?
So now you've insulted her.
No, she was not insulted.
Okay, we're just clarifying.
Yes, she never was insulted.
Okay.
She, I think, was aware of the trick that was being played.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, if there's not going to be any of that, what the hell am I paying for?
Mm.
And she's like, oh, well, you're paying for my time. And I'm like, so what will you do? Because, you know, I was like, hey, okay, so
here we go.
So I'm like, so
now you really do need a script.
There's no intercourse.
Uh-huh.
There's no oral report.
No hanky-panky of any sort.
Eventually, she's like, well, look, if you want to go solo, like, I can go sit in the corner and watch. And I was like, I don't get it. This doesn't make sense.
Did she call that?
What is it on a normal night when you've been paid to do this job? What is it that you guys do?
Did she say we call that the Jimmy Swaggart?
She did not.
Okay, so that's just for you older folks out there.
So I what is it that you normally do? And she's like, well, a lot of times we'll sit around and just talk.
Wow.
We'll play a board game.
Whoa. The girlfriend/wife experience. I brought Boggle.
It was at that moment when she told me we could play Monopoly that it occurred to me that my friend who is paying for this.
Yeah. Has paid for Boggle and Monopoly.
He's finding out the same thing that I found out.
From the other side of the wall, you heard Battleship. Did you just say Battleship?
So I call him up, right? Like, I probably called the front desk and said, hey, I need to give me this person's room. He answers the phone and he's just laughing his ass off. And I'm like, hey, man, he's just laughing. I'm like, what's going on over in your room? And he's like, oh, I've got her jumping on the bed. Apparently, once he found out that there was not going to be the same thing that I did, he started thinking of ways to still get some sort of redemption out of the money that had been spent. So he went Coming to America on her first. He had her get on all fours and bark like a dog in the hotel room.
No, he didn't. Are you serious?
And it eventually led to he asked her to get on top of the bed and jump around on the bed for a little while.
Wow, he put her through the escort combine. That's exciting. Did he ever run a 40? Like
no.
He
He stopped her at the jumping on the bed, and because I said, hey, well, should you guys just come back on over? And he was like, yeah, we'll do that. So they come back over to the room, my room, and then we were just sitting in the room, and it was just very awkward.
Oh my God.
Because the truth of the matter is, while we were dirty heathen men and would have done certain things with these young women, we didn't really want to talk to them. So,
okay.
So I said, hey, we've got like 30 minutes left on our running dial. Why don't you guys just go? So they make a phone call.
You didn't want to play spades or anything?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, but at that point, I was okay with sleep. Because again, it was late. This was unplanned.
Is it rude if I ask you what kind of an amount are we talking about here? In 2002?
What kind of what?
What kind of money are we talking about? Like,
I have no idea. I never had.
You don't know what he paid.
Okay. I've never asked.
You never asked. Okay.
I know what I paid on the hotel rooms.
Right. Okay.
Which was like a little bit less than like $400 for like the two rooms combined.
Right.
Like it didn't come. It was. I took it, Chad. I took a financial L. Okay.
Gotcha.
I have no idea what he paid, but what was so funny is that so they're like, oh, you guys are ready for us to leave. They called somebody on their cell phone. I don't know if it was their protection or their pimp or both or whatever.
Right.
But now we hear a knock on the door. And the door opens up. And this kid couldn't have been 18 years old. Okay. And he was like 5'2", 112 pounds. And me and this guy look at each other. And now it's like, what's he supposed to do? So
he shows up. He may be the pimp, and he looks like the Cowboys kicker.
Is Brandon McCut? Yes.
Okay.
They leave, and now we're discussing the L that we just took.
Yeah.
Kind of laughing about it. And then he's convinced that he can beat up the protection / escort, like whatever guy.
Right.
Then I had to walk him off the ledge of following them out into the hotel parking lot and jumping the dude and taking his money back.
Wow. Because
I was like, you gotta take the L.
Because all this was
the L.
Yeah, you do. Because all that was done with cash, I'm assuming?
Again.
You don't know.
That's a perfectly reasonable question, but I don't think so. I don't know. Well, I didn't partake in that.
Right. It has to be a yes if he was willing to beat him up to get it back. There's no way that
he was convinced that, yes, if we accosted this guy in the parking lot, that the money could be regained. And I was just like, no, man. At some point, I go, what we have here is a story. And we paid for it. We got a great story. One day, 20 years from now, I'll be doing a YouTube show. What's YouTube? Don't ask that question, Marty. We're going to be doing a YouTube show. And I'm going to tell this to people, and it'll be funny. We'll get our money's worth. We just won't get what you thought you were getting. And he eventually went to sleep in the hotel, and I eventually drove home back to my apartment on Burnett Road over by Slick Willie's and just didn't use the room.
That's so bizarre. Yeah.
That is my hooker story.
There it is. There's the hooker story. And the idea that you thought you could tell that in 6 minutes at the end of the show yesterday is laughable.
Somebody
I cannot
wrote
believe
Kurt Bowles invented prostitution.
All right, that's funny. That is funny. That is funny. All right, we do have some super chats that have come in, but they are related. One of them, at least, is two of them are related to.
Somebody wrote that. Text Guy 2 says, definitely could have got shot. That crossed my mind as well. The funny thing is, I wonder if the guy that I was with is watching this right now. There's at least a decent chance.
That's funny.
And he felt like, if I remember how it unfolded, that his cat-like quicknesses would have allowed him to sneak up on the guy before a gun could have been pulled. And I'd like to pat myself on the back for like,
yeah, dude, at 3:30,
that entire scenario out of the equation.
Not at 3:30 in the morning. There's no way. There's no way that is happening. Thanks for all the super chats that have already come in. We'll grab this one. It is not Red Banquet related. $1.99 from James. There was apparently some discussion when I asked about cornerbacks when we were discussing Kobe Black and when's the last time Texas had a cornerback of this level. We were having that discussion. Maybe that's how this one came in. It says Monroe was a DB. I thought he was a wide receiver. I'm assuming, is that a DJ Monroe?
Yes.
Conversation? Okay, James.
Yeah.
I remember DJ Monroe as an offensive player as well. He wasn't a DB, was he?
He was officially listed as a cornerback when he was recruited to Texas. Probably should have been listed as an athlete because of obviously the ability to play on either side of the ball.
Gotcha. James, thank you for that. Every time I think of DJ Monroe, all I think about is Greg Davis every week answering the same question. Hey, Coach, DJ Monroe's averaging like 10.2 a carry. What thoughts? And it'd be like, yeah, we got to get him the ball more. Like that's all every week. Every week. And they never would. They never would, but yeah. Also, a quick score prediction, Ketch, before we get into some Red Banquet talk. Tyler says at the time it was 253 watching, only 35 likes. Funny, that's my prediction for the Sugar Bowl score. Tyler's going 253 to 35.
Damn.
Texas over Washington. Tyler, that is a blowout. I know a lot of Longhorn fans watching right now hope
I'll take that
you are right about that. Damn.
Hey, the watch along will be crazy that night.
It will be. So, Ketch, in terms of you want to squeeze buy or sell in here, and then we can jump into some Red Banquet memories. You want to do that, or are we still dealing with that story? Did you at least go back for some Texas-shaped waffles in the morning?
Guys, in real time, trust me, it was such an L. All you could do is literally laugh out loud at how bad of an L that was. I just went back to my apartment and slept.
Yeah.
Chad, enough time goes by, like 6 hours. And then you appreciate it for what it is, which is an amazing story to tell people.
Yeah. The only thing I was wondering just real quick is, was there an upsale possibility? Was the argument that you were paying for the time, but then there was an upsale possible that you could have then been paying for what you thought you would have been paying for? No, it was strictly time. Gotcha. Fair enough.
The way it was explained to me was that they normally hung out with old dudes.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair enough.
Most of their time playing Monopoly would have been done with, like, I don't know, seniors. I don't know.
Gotcha. Straight up companionship, which, by the way, I'm all for being legal, just like the stuff y'all were kind of looking for. But that's just me. All right.
Let me just say this. It will put an end to all future, because I'm very much a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me kind of a guy.
Yeah, that's rough.
Once that happens, you can live with the L. You can. Stuff happens. Wasn't even my idea. I wouldn't even have done it had it not been suggested hours beforehand. But you never let yourself get in that situation twice.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Coming up in an hour, we'll get into some SEC schedule stuff. Texas A&M, and Oklahoma, and other teams, obviously, have games that need to be filled in. We'll talk about some of the questions that I've got about where Texas's schedule will look like, especially when it pertains to Oklahoma and Georgia and where those two games are located. Ketch, you and Chad have to remake that night. No, Juju, we don't. No. The
thing is, there's no Austin. I don't think the Austin Chronicle does that anymore.
I do not know.
Do you remember when the Austin Chronicle used to come out and the entire back page was like sex ads?
I do remember that. Yes, I do remember that. I never spent much time in those ads. I was just using the Chronicle for music, honestly, because I.
You
because I was and am and will always be so cheap that I was not headed back to that section. Just wasn't going to happen. All right. So you want to do a little buy or sell here? What are we doing?
Let's do buy or sell.
All right. You want to go first or second?
You go first today.
All righty. Mr. Ketchum, buy or sell number one. If you were making the schedule, you'd put Texas OU on October the 5th and give Texas a bye week before Georgia.
Bye. No pun intended. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I don't know what you put in between that if, damn.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, even sticking a scrub in there feels like you're almost taking advantage of a situation, putting those two games so close to each other.
Yeah, and for people who don't realize, I hadn't realized it, next year and in 25, each team in the SEC will have 2 bye weeks because there's 14 weeks and 12 games to play. So we'll take a look at that part of it as well in about an hour. All right, buy or sell number 2, Ketch. Kobe Black to Texas wouldn't be Colin Simmons kind of good, but it's damn close.
Buy. That's exactly what it is. I mean, Colin Simmons is a top of the food chain 5-star guy. Kobe Black's not quite that, but man, he's not far away. He's a spectacular player. I think as long as he stays healthy, you're talking about a guy that almost certainly will have a very strong chance of playing on Sundays, and you get a chance to, in theory, reap the residuals of that for the next 3 seasons.
All right, let's get to that Sugar Bowl. Buy or sell number 3, Ketch. Baxter plus Blue will have more carries than Dylan Johnson.
Buy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Washington's going to have a tough time running the football on Texas. I think this will be a game where they almost exclusively have to lean on Michael Penix to get to the finish line. And yeah, I think, if they're the worst case version of this is what we saw in the Oklahoma State game. The game's not going to be that because they've got a much better version of options than Oklahoma State did. But I think from a running the ball standpoint, Ollie Gordon didn't find a lot of success, and I don't expect Washington to either.
Interesting note, if you just do the full numbers, and I know it's kind of not fair with Baxter and Blue, but they're at about 14 carries a game combined. Dylan Johnson is at about 15 on the season. So we'll see where that one ends up. Dylan Johnson up over 200 carries on the season. Buy or sell number 4, Ketch. Cowboys at the Bills. You'll take boys plus 2.5 all day.
Sell. The all day part is just inaccurate. Even if I would take the boys in 2.5, I would agonize over it. So all day would seem to indicate that I would just snap your hand off for the Cowboys in 2.5 and call it a day. It's not the case. I'm very nervous about that game.
Gotcha. And finally, Ketch, let's get to the birthday that's got my daughter's attention today. Today is Taylor Swift's 34th birthday. And if I tell you that the Mount Rushmore of female pop stars in my life is Taylor, Beyonce, Madonna, and a spot to be discussed, you're okay with that?
Bye.
Okay.
I wonder who the spot would be.
I do too.
And I wonder if, is that Britney?
There were a few, the first 2 names that popped in my head were Britney and Janet. And then I
don't think of Janet as pop.
And I was trying to figure out.
She made pop music.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where to go after that. But yeah.
Hell, I'll tell you what, I'll spend the rest of the show thinking about it. But yeah, I'll buy the concept that the first 3 on have to be the 3 that you named.
Yeah. Happy birthday to Taylor today, 34. And if you have a Swiftie in your world like I do, today is also the day that the Taylor Eras Tour movie hits Prime Video. I warn you now, I think you're going to actually have to pay to get it. I don't believe it comes with Prime because, Taylor's going to need the money. Buy or sell, halfway done. What do you got, Ketch?
Buy or sell number 1. If Taylor Swift let it be known to Leonardo DiCaprio that she was interested in him, you think Leo would turn her down because she's now too old at 34?
Bye. Gotta have a code. That's apparently his code. It's not my code. I'm into older women. He's not. He's into a certain thing, and she's not that certain thing. So yeah, it's a buy.
All right. Buy or sell number 2. Draymond Green's back to being Draymond Green. Maybe the most ridiculous version of Draymond Green that we've seen so far in what has been a Hall of Fame yet historically ridiculous era of basketball. You think NBA's got to give him at least 10 games for what that was last night in the NBA?
Oh, man, at least 10. There was a number less than that in my head as you were starting out. So I'll sell.
10's a lot.
I'll sell 10. It's gotten now to where I feel like I'm watching a press conference of the bull at the back of the china shop after someone let him go through the china shop, and he's just staring at you like, well, you know I'm a bull, right? And it's a china shop. And when you saw me walk in, what did you think was gonna, like, me, China, right? It's just surreal now. I'll sell, but I get what you're saying. It's gotten so silly now. I almost think 10 games is too much, but maybe I
mean, the man has a history.
Oh my God. There's no doubt. I could also make an argument he might need like 20, but it's just, I don't know. I'll sell 10. I'll say it's like 5 to 8, somewhere in there.
Buy or sell number 3. As an Aggie, you've watched this Kobe Black recruitment unfold, and you think the fact that the Aggies aren't in the final, like really in the final group of schools, is a great example of why Texas A&M needed to make a change at its head coach.
Yeah, buy probably, because there was supposed to be, we've talked a lot about Jimbo, but there was supposed to be a flash about the combo of Jimbo, Durkin, and Petrino. That was really supposed to provide some flash, some spark, some cool, and it apparently didn't. And apparently Kobe Black and others might have looked at that DJ Durkin defense this year and just thought, I don't know if I want to be a part of that. And in a way, I can't blame him.
Interesting. Okay. Buy or sell number 4. As far as all-time great number 88s go in Dallas Cowboys uniform, you would take CeeDee Lamb in his prime right now over Des Bryant in his prime.
Oh, that's a great one. I appreciate you leaving those other 2 guys out of the discussion. Man, I think I'll say buy.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like,
I think I'll say it's a hell of a discussion, because I'm thinking of both of them in their prime, at their best, and what they bring you. I'm really enjoying what CD has become. So I'll use the recency bias and say I'll take this 88. Bye.
And finally, buy or sell number 5. And I'm connecting this to a group of questions that I want to ask you following this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of how I want to ask the question. I've had a bunch of examples in my head. All right, buy or sell. The Leon Lett fumble against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Is the worst turnover in the history of the Dallas Cowboys in the regular season.
The Leon, yeah. The snow touching.
Yeah.
Worst turnover in the Cowboys history.
It feels like the one they play the most.
Season. I mean, because of how often you see it, I guess it's gotta be a buy. It did cost them the game. It was a huge moment in that game. It literally cost them the ball game. So yeah, right now I can't think of another one that pops in my head. It's a buy. And the Leon Lett from the Super Bowl is meaningless in a way. So you can't.
What I wanted to ask you that I
what's
the worst turnover in Dallas Cowboys history?
The worst turnover, man. Um,
Because we wouldn't go to any of the Super Bowls that we played in, like that we saw when we were old enough to see them. If you go back to the 70s, those games are remembered for the Jackie Smith drop, the Lynn Swan catch.
And there were some bad turnovers in that Steelers game. That Steelers game gets remembered as a classic. It actually was a fairly sloppy game both ways. Like Cowboys,
it's only remembered as a classic because the Super Bowls used to suck back then, and it was like remotely competitive, where they usually weren't. And now we get great Super Bowls all the time.
Yeah, it was a pretty sloppy performance. So I'm going to say there's probably, if you go ask an older Cowboys fan than us, it's probably something in that game because the Cowboys were sloppy that day. There was also a ton of turnovers in that Colts loss, Super Bowl V.
I was thinking about taking away one of the turnovers in the 95 NFC Championship game against the Niners that keeps them from three-peating.
Yes, I think that's probably it. I don't know which one you pick. Probably the one that made it. Wasn't there one that made it 21-0?
I've tried to block out. You had an Irvin fumble and you had an Aikman pick six, I believe. I
think it's the pick six for me. Whichever one of them made it, because there's one that stretched it out to either 17-0 or 21-0 or whatever it was, and it was just too much to chase. It's that one because you and I both know that they played like hell. They fought like hell. We're both proud of the way they played from then to the end of the game. Like we'd put that performance from that point to the end of the game up against anything we've ever seen. They were badasses, but they just got down too much. So it's that turnover. You're right. That's the one.
Here it would be, Eric Davis had a 44-yard interception return that made it 7-0.
Yeah,
that was the one that the 49ers scored on defense.
Right.
And then Irvin had a fumble afterwards.
So maybe it's that led, because that would have led to those early scores.
Cowboys had 5 turnovers that day.
Oh God. Yeah, that's bad.
So look, I think the obvious Texas Longhorn football question is the Craig Curry fumble in the 1984 Cotton Bowl.
Yes. Because
that fumble eventually cost Texas a national championship in the sense that that was a 9-3 game with 4:20 something to go in the game. He muffs that fumble. Georgia recovers. They score the touchdown. They win 10-9. Texas loses. They would have won the national championship had they won that game.
Yes.
But in the 2000s, what's the worst Texas Longhorn turnover of all time?
In the 2000s, what's the worst Texas turnover of all time? Obviously, the Crabtree play's not a turnover. The Gideon play's not a turnover.
Yeah, you're thinking of the things I'm thinking of.
I'm thinking of those horrific plays in a Texas fan's minds that they're never
turnovers.
Yeah, they're not turnovers. And then I'm thinking, there's turnovers that you.
Is it one of the Sims interceptions in the 2001 championship game?
Yeah, you know what? Is it a pick? Because you could make it's the same argument from the Cowboys game. Because it's the moment, it's that one that made it too far to come back from. You discussed it recently that Mac waited too long. He waited till after it to make the switch, and Major couldn't reel it all.
Roy Williams Superman play is a great one too.
Oh yeah, boy, is that a turnover.
Okay, so real quick,
you're in one of those same season, right?
Is there an Aggies answer to this question?
You keeping it in the same decade, or are you saying ever?
I'll let you go with it wherever you want because I don't know the answers.
The two that jumped in my head when you were talking about turnovers, the Zach Thomas interception in Lubbock is a big one for Aggies in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. He picked 6 that one, right?
I think that was off of Corey Pullig, and it's mid-90s, and that was a big moment. And then in a bowl game, if I'm not mistaken, Chris Spielman picked off Kevin Murray in that Cotton Bowl, which officially made that Ohio State's game. Otherwise, the Aggies could have won all 3 of those Cotton Bowls, the Auburn game, the Notre Dame game, and that one. That was a bit of a heartbreaker that I remember. I can still remember that game, and I think it was either Spielman fumble recovery or Spielman on a pick. Those are two big ones for me.
Anyway, this was all running it through my head yesterday during the show, and I couldn't find a good way to jump in and ask this question. But it's fat because I've been thinking about it when I said the "No Danny No" reference,
mm-hmm.
and then it was like,
"No Danny No" is the worst over on downs of my life. Period. There's nothing close to "No Danny No."
Oh, okay.
And am I right in saying he handed that ball to Ron Springs?
Wasn't that a Ron? I thought he threw an interception.
Oh, I thought it was a.
Honestly, Chad, that was.
I don't even care at this point. Yeah, we don't care. We don't care at this point. You're right.
I remember that it happened, but the details of that 41-year-old game are a bit fuzzy. In part because that was right in the middle of like every big game, the Cowboys losing to the 49ers or Washington or the Eagles or whomever. Wow. It's kind of my introduction into Cowboysdom.
Ketch, here's a great one that we did not mention. Good job by Sandman and some of the others for Longhorn fans. The Garrett Gilbert botch shovel pass, pick 6, as time expires in the first half of the Natty game against Bama. Remember how close that game was at that moment? That's a great one, Sandman. Yes. There you go. Because
you just as easily in that game also go to they get the ball back with like under 3 minutes to go and Gilbert gets sacked and fumbles.
True.
Texas had a chance to drive the length of the field and win the game.
Two different ones, right? Two different ones where it's close. Texas fans always look back at that game and if Colt didn't get hurt and if, that there's that part of it. But then even with the injury,
they were 3 minutes away from winning that game.
How close Texas was in
some they could have gone the length of the field and scored.
Right, got it, yeah.
Chad, we'll go into the Red Banquet. I've got someone knocking at my door. Can we either take a break or you do an ad and hold down the fort for a couple of minutes before my dogs go crazy?
Yeah, let's do it. We'll do a little sinus and snoring here, and you go take care of that. We do have some Red Banquet discussion coming up. Let me talk sinus and snoring specialists. Make sure you're sleeping good. Make sure you're resting well. Make sure you're ready to go for the next banquet or, wedding or honeymoon party or whatever you got going on. Sinus and snoring specialists will make sure that you're doing well. Just like my wife is right now with her CPAP, just like I'm doing well and have been since 2017. This is the very latest in ear, nose, and throat stuff. Dr. Slaughter, double board certified in ear, nose, and throat, which means there are surgical and non-surgical options that others just do not have, and it'll get you feeling right. But get rid of your allergies for good. I talk about it all the time. This is the time of year where Texas will give you the cold weather and the hot weather all in one day. And sometimes that really messes with your allergies, but I haven't had to deal with that since 2011. Check them out, 512-601-0303. They're at sinussnoringent.com, or just the simple way right there. Just scan that QR code. I know some of you have already checked into it. If it's you, if it's the person that's in bed with you, if it's one of your kids, if it's your dad, if it's your uncle, there's somebody, a friend, a family member, and somebody's bitching about snoring, sleep apnea, and all of that. I know. I've been there. I've been there with me, and I've been there with my wife. I was worried about her. I was concerned. I kept talking to her about it, and finally, she grabbed a hold of it. You got to want to do it, and it's got to be for you if it's your situation. So if you're the stubborn one, do it. There's your QR code right there. Let this be the holiday season. You finally step up and figure out what's going on. Sinus and snoring specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. All right, Ketch is taking care of something at the house. We will get into Red Banquet discussions. Before we do that, let me see if there's another chat we can jump into. Because I'll be honest, I believe somebody asked, is Evan Stewart in the portal? I don't think he is. I have not seen the name. Evan Stewart is talented enough that I think we would have heard if he was in the portal. I do not think, James, that he is in the portal. I'll double check that with Ketch when he jumps back in, but I don't think so. We've gotten multiple super chats in. And we will. Oh, here's a super chat for you. Texas TV super chat $4.99. Best story ever. Wife is here with me listening to this story, laughing, and at the same time, like WTF. I'm assuming that is from the Ketch, the hump day multiple hooker story. Well, they thought it was multiple hookers. It was just a couple of escorts ready to spend some time. Thank you, Texas TV, for jumping in. Thank you for that super chat. We've got some other super chats. Let's see. All right, here we go. Here's a Draymond Green reaction super chat. $4.99 from Paul. Draymond, regular season suspension alone does nothing to fix him. 10 games regular season and entire first round of playoffs. Now, that would be bold if they go that far. I just don't know. It's so weird to me that Draymond Green, after all this time, is going to argue that what we saw last night was just this complete, hey, y'all know I sell stuff. Y'all know I sell fouls. And it's like, right, but do you normally sell them with a spin and a spin and slap? Like, that's not normally how you do it. Paul, appreciate it. We'll see what the NBA does with that one. And, you know, it was so frustrating to watch Draymond last night where he said, yeah, I know, I apologize to, it was Yusuf Nurkic that he did it to. I apologize to him because I didn't intend to do it. I didn't intend to do that. And you got Steph Curry having to answer the questions, and Steve Kerr's got to answer the questions. We need him on the floor and all that. And then Draymond's like, yeah, no, they're right, but that's not what happened tonight. That wasn't me, you know, doing something that was bad for my team. This was just me trying to sell a foul. That's all I was trying to do. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. All right, Jeff Ketchum jumping back in. Everything good in Ketchum land?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Ketch, somebody texted or chatted us, is Evan Stewart in the portal? I told James I have not seen it yet. Have you?
Not unless this happened in the last 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, he is that at that talent level where I think we would have seen that. Okay, Ketch. So in terms of the Red Banquet, and first off, let me just thank Chris Bennett for giving somebody in the chat a quick explanation. 10 years ago, the Texas Football Banquet live on LHN. During it, Saban signed an extension to stay at Bama. That's 10 years ago tonight. And Chris Bennett pointed it out. Others pointed it out. And we thought we would get into a little bit of a discussion. Ketch, we do have a couple of super chats that kind of go back to that time period. Do you want to start there, or do you want to just kind of start out talking about it?
No, let's get the super chats, and maybe it'll take us there.
Okay. This one I think is the appropriate starting point. From Officially Ethos, $4.99. Honestly, how close were we to bagging Saban back in the day? Was it all smoke, or was there some fire? It's a question that haunts me. LOL. What would you tell Ethos?
I think it's a question that I can give you some backstory on, but I think ultimately there's forever going to be a question about, well, let's just start here. The issue behind that whole night was that there was a Texas faction that felt like they had Nick Saban queued up and ready to go. And they were letting we had our intel at Orange Bloods on this was coming from multiple places, but there was an administrative sourcing that it was coming from, and then there was an agent source that it was coming from. Very close to the situation. We were hearing that on that Friday. So what happens is Mac Brown, he goes recruiting. He just goes barnstorming all over the country. It's where he made the infamous quote that someone asked when he was going to get back to Austin, and he mentioned that he was just killing himself out there on the recruiting trails. And it was like, that pissed Texas fans off because, Chad, I don't know if you know this. You know what they call recruiting your ass off in the SEC?
Thursday.
Yeah, recruiting.
Yeah.
It's the job. Sometimes you got to go on the road and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Comes back on this Friday, and Mac has a meeting with the president of the university, which I believe is Bill Powers,
Yep.
There is a maybe a border region member or so there. Steve Patterson was there, but in an observatory role more than anything else, because he's brand new, and it was like, we're not going to throw this on him as he shows up. And the whole thing was that they were trying to get Mack Brown in this meeting to go away quietly. But nobody had the guts or the balls in this meeting to say, Mack, you're out. This is it. You're done. Mack had knew about the Saban stuff and had been stalling and hemming and hawing, and they leave that meeting, and a member of the Texas Board of Regents calls Saban's agent, and the agent's like, all right, are we in business? What are we doing? What's going on? And they're like, well, there's no resolution. And the agent, allegedly, in this role, is Jimmy Sexton. And Sexton allegedly tells Texas, like, what the fuck's wrong with you guys? What does this guy have on you guys? You've got Nick Saban ready to go. You guys can't get rid of this guy. What's the problem? There's no good answer. That phone call ends. There's some hurt feelings from what I've been told. Allegedly, we'll just throw alleged in the entire story. Alleged. So Mack goes off to the banquet. And while he's at the banquet, he starts talking about returning for the next season. And Texas fans everywhere are like, what's going on?
Starts talking in terms of talking to players or talking to
he's at the podium. Talking about
right.
how excited he is to come back and like try to do it again in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
While he's at the podium, Kirk Herbstreit breaks the news at the exact moment in the middle of the banquet that Nick Saban has signed the extension that's been on his desk for months. Saban signs his Alabama extension. It gets announced in the middle of the Texas banquet while Mack Brown's at the podium telling people that he's excited about coming back for another year. Texas fans everywhere lost their shit. Orange Bloods, there's never, ever, ever, ever been anything like it. People were so angry. I was getting cancellation emails from people who I considered friends who were like, fuck you guys and fuck your reporting. I don't want anything to do with you again. This was coming from friends.
And for the record, what leading up to that day, what was
leading up to that day, we had reported that Mack was out and that Friday's meeting was supposed to be resolution to that.
Okay.
So we had been reporting, and it had been national news, that our report was that Mack was going to be removed as head coach, which was what was supposed to have happened at that meeting, and nobody had the guts to do it. So then all hell breaks loose on every internet site because everybody was kind of reporting the same thing, that Mack was out. Everybody just got mad. One of our competing websites turned off their message boards.
Wow.
Another competing message board, their staff just quit, like not quit in that they quit their jobs. They just let Rome burn. Not me. For about 7 consecutive hours, I started a chat. It lasted till 5 a.m. Wow. I took every arrow. I took every cursing out. I took every you suck at your job. I took every question, every comment. I answered them till 5 o'clock in the morning. There was so much anger, organic fume, that as soon as Saturday morning starts, the athletic department start getting phone calls. Everybody's canceling their money. Everybody's mad. It got so bad the reaction from that banquet and that sequence that by 11 o'clock the next morning, that Saturday morning, this was on Friday the 13th that this all happened, 2013. By the next morning, Saturday morning, on the 14th, they told Mac, you're out. And by noon that day, like the press release was out and, it kind of went from there. But they literally it was the most SEC moment in the history of the Texas football program. They got so combustibly hot that they were able to force the Texas decision makers into actually doing the thing that they kept saying they were going to do and just didn't have the whatever you want to call it to actually look Mac Brown in the eye and say, this is it. It's over. The thing that nobody will ever know, there was a sense that Saban was waiting on Texas. And some of that is indicative of the fact that it's always been alleged that he signed the new contract and purposefully had Herb Street release it during the Texas banquet out of spite.
Right.
Now, the question is, how much of this was agent stuff? How much of this was Jimmy Sexton just doing his job? And then would have eventually gone to Nick Saban and say, this is what they have. This is the offer. Are you interested? There's always debate as to how far along it was. But there's a lot of people that I know that were involved in that believe in their heart of hearts that had they been able to fire Mac Brown 24 hours earlier, that Nick Saban would have come to Texas.
Interesting.
I can't tell you that that's what would have happened.
Right.
Because ultimately there's a process, and Texas never put Nick Saban into a position where Saban had to make a decision. And, there was lots of rumors out there at the time that Saban had lost some money on some real estate stuff, and that somehow there were some people at Alabama that were partially responsible for it. And the talk had always been that some Texas people were just going to wipe away that debt. It's fascinating today because I'm watching Saban. He's got car dealerships and all kinds of stuff that he's interested in Alabama, but it wasn't like that a decade ago. His financial situation at Alabama has really taken a turn for an improvement in the last 10 years. But part of the alleged interest in Texas was that Texas would help on some, not beyond just paying him a boatload of money. There were some other things that it was alleged that he would have help with. And the way the conversation always went, a couple of notes from that. One, there had always been rumors. I don't know if he's ever actually confirmed though, but the word was that Saban vetted Ricky Williams in a position for his staff. And there was, I had always heard through sources to the agent, allegedly, I don't want to get sued in the event that I get anything wrong and Sexton thinks I've spoken about something as fact instead of a story that I've heard. But I'd heard that the bubble was viewed as a monstrosity, and that if Saban were going to come to Texas, they had to have a plan to get rid of the bubble immediately, which is funny because it's 10 years later.
And they've got a plan.
They do have a plan, but the bubble is still a monstrosity.
That is true. That is true. Officially Ethos, thank you so much for that super chat. Here's another one related in a way. James 499. Ketch, who did you think was more likely going to Texas at their respective time, Kyler or Saban?
That's a bit of a tricky one. I thought I knew that Kyler was coming to Texas. If you haven't had that story, there was a lot of on the back end of that. I spoke to an Allen Independent School District official who told me that his father, Kevin, had called the school district to announce a commitment to Texas. And I'm pretty sure that happened because the person that told me that got into trouble. They circled back around and figured out who the leak was to me.
Right.
And I never heard from that person again. But I vetted the guy, and there's no doubt about like who he was and what he did for a living. So I thought I had the goods there. Again, the thing with Saban is it never got to a point where they put Saban in a decision-making process. All they ever did was have conversations about what they would do if they got rid of Mac. But there was never a contract. There was never terms had never completely been discussed. It had only got to the point of, look, we're interested, but before anything can happen, you guys got to get rid of Mac, because what the word had always been was that Saban was sensitive to like it looking like he ran Mac out. Saban would have been interested in the job, but he didn't want to make it look like he hatcheted Mac out the door. That needed to be the Texas administrative's job. That needed to be Powers. That needed to be from the AD. It probably needed to come from the Board of Regents. It didn't happen that way. And so we just never got that far along. So I guess I would say Kyler, although, it became pretty clear after I made the 85% comment when there wasn't a press conference and when time went by and, you could see, oh, God, he's going to stay with A&M, isn't he? Things changed. Your perception, my perception changed. But I guess I would answer Kyler because there was never a moment where I absolutely thought Saban was coming. There were still too many questions that hadn't yet been answered. And the biggest is ultimately, okay, Nick, here's a contract. Here's everything that you want in a contract. It's all there. You have to decide. That never happened. And so it's kind of hard to say what Nick Saban would have done when it never reached the moment where he had to like sit down with his wife and go, hey, are we or are we not going to do this? It was all theoretical.
Yeah. James, thank you for that super chat. Just a reminder, Kobe Black decision day. That happens at 4:20 at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Alex Dunlap, Jeff Ketchum, Jason Sukamel from Waco. It's Waco Conley High, in case you don't know. Kobe Black will make his decision, and it'll be all covered for you. Orange Bloods Live. Be ready for that. Get your notifications. Like, subscribe. If you have your notifications, that's how you find out about special shows like that. 4 o'clock this afternoon, the Kobe Black reaction show, and where he will decide to commit. Many think it is Texas. We'll talk SEC schedules coming up at 2. We've got super chats on this topic. I just like this regular chat from Sandman. Can't wait for Saban to write the book on the time period. Sandman, that'll be wild if Nick Saban ever writes a book about that time period.
Or Jimmy Sexton.
Or if the agent
this was all done through the agent, right? This wasn't going directly to Saban. But if you guys can go that far back, Saban wasn't answering any questions about this.
No,
and
because he'd learned his lesson, Catch, with the Dolphins thing. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
The Dolphins where, you're going to make me say it? I'm not going to be the coach at Alabama. And then he ends up that.
All that did, though, was exasperate the rumors of he actually does have an interest in Texas. I can remember when the rumors were when the discussion was its hottest, he went on to Game Day. And they did an entire 20-minute interview with him on Game Day, and it never came up. And it was like, you want to know how serious that is? They know to ask the question, and he won't let them ask the question, or he's not doing this interview. He's told them from the beginning, we're not talking about the Texas thing, don't ask me, and they didn't. But his silence on the subject always, for those that believe, will always believe it was an indicator.
Yeah, real quick, Catch, before this next super chat. I don't know if you and I have ever discussed this particular idea, but I've always thought the basics of if Nick Saban had just taken a breath, not contacted Kirk Herbstreit, and not done that on that Friday night, that things could have progressed outside of that, and maybe he gets that opportunity. Do you agree with that, that if he had just chilled out, that Mac would have said what he said at the banquet, that Texas fans would have flipped out on Orange Bloods and everywhere else, it would have still caused them to say, Mac, we're done. And then on that Saturday night or Sunday, then Saban and Texas could have had the discussion.
It's a great question because it can only be asked really rhetorically. The anger that night, part of what the fuel to there was a match that was lit, but the fuel that caused the massive fire was the Herb Street announcement.
Right.
So,
but there still would have been a basic anger, right? If they
there
know
would have, but I don't think it would have been a simmering fire as opposed to,
right,
an out of control forest fire.
So you believe?
I don't know. What I don't think is that by 11 o'clock the next morning, I don't think Mac would have been fired.
Okay, so you really believe that the reaction to that Friday night is what ultimately led to them making the decision, not Max saying what he said Friday night.
That's why I'm saying it's Texas's first SEC moment.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because the thing that fired Mac was the fan base's eruption, not anybody who was in control. And if you're asking yourself, surely someone would have stepped forward and taken control and done the thing. It's the same group of people that almost brought Charlie Strong back after the 2016 season, and only the Kansas game put that over the top.
Yeah.
That they were prepared to bring Charlie Strong back and they lost to Kansas. But if that doesn't happen in 2016, he probably gets a fourth year because nobody had the guts to do the big, bad, bold thing. And those are the same people that were in charge back in 2013.
10 years ago tonight is the Red Banquet. That's why we're talking about it today. Thank you, Sandman, for that comment.
I'm serious, Chad. It's one of my proudest moments of being on Orange Bloods, because never has it been hotter in the kitchen than that night.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw everybody else in the industry act like a bunch of chicken shits. And it was wild, man. People were animals. They were wilding on the message boards. I was having to take every kind of thing you can imagine my way. And we did. We answered questions. We were transparent. We tried to explain how it happened, why we were here, who had dropped the ball. Did that till 5 a.m. And then a few hours later, the thing that we'd been saying was going to happen did happen.
Yeah.
And I always felt like the people who've been around for a long time remember how that played out. It's very much like, very Game of Thrones, the North remembers kind of a thing. Like, people who are around remember how that went down and remember who ran and hid when everybody's reporting started to fall apart. And I was really proud that, in the face of thousands of angry Orange Bloods customers, I thought we did our best work that night.
Which leads us to this next super chat, because somebody's looking to see if you have a specific. Ben, $5. Was there an OB post/moment that most viscerally sticks in your mind where you were like, wow, people are rioting? Or was it just everything?
Let me see if I still have the email.
Oh, there's an email that he specifically thought of.
Yes, because I told you I got an email from a guy that advertised on Orange Bloods.
Uh-huh.
He was a friend of the site, I think Jason probably still calls it. To be completely honest, I've never been able to get over this moment.
Uh-huh.
He sent an email that night, not like Monday, when things if you were friend, this was a guy, I've been in his home a lot. Right. I was invited over to his house every year for preseason barbecues and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's Friday night.
That night,
Yeah.
He sent us a letter, and I can't find it in my email, so maybe I eventually deleted it. But he basically I have it.
Uh-oh. Here we go. We're going back to the night 10 years ago, two-night Red Banquet reaction from an emailer.
Sent at midnight that night.
Okay.
He sends it to Taylor. Taylor Gaspar used to work for Orange Bloods.
Mm-hmm.
It says, Taylor, based upon recent events, I want to suspend my advertising. I have spoke with a lot of friends, and in everyone's opinion, Orange Bloods is currently so out of favor with your readers that ads on Orange Bloods will not only be unproductive, but harmful to fill in the blank business.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps I will renew later, but right now, toxic is the word that best describes Orange Bloods' reputation. Please bill me what I owe you to this date, blank, blank.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy. There you go, Ben.
That was how bad was it? That was from a friend.
Yeah. That was from someone that had invited you to the house multiple times.
I traveled with this person before, friends.
You could have told me if he was married, his wife's name. If he had kids, his kids. You could have told me all kinds of stuff, and that's who that was. Wow.
And that, I just read the email. That was word for word the email, and it was if that is coming from somebody that we consider to be a friend, you can imagine how bad it was in and around that email. It was bad.
That's amazing. Amazing. 10 years ago tonight was the Red Banquet on December 13th. Imagine that. It happened on Taylor Swift's 24th birthday. I bet she remembers. She probably could. She was probably distracted. There's probably a song she wrote because she's got a song about her 21st birthday. This is probably one she wrote 3 years later where she didn't get near enough attention on Red Banquet night. Hard to believe it's been 10 years. Thank you for all the chats that are rolling in. We will. I'm just checking on chats here to see what else we've got regarding this. Somebody chatted in. Sandman says Red Banquet greater than Red Wedding.
No, because nobody actually was murdered in the Red Banquet.
Yeah,
Mac lost his job. We had some angry people, but by Saturday, everything had calmed down. Mac had been fired. And then it really was easy to in real time, we were telling people at 4:00 in the morning what was happening, and nobody else in the industry was. I'm telling you, man, people, I've never seen an online mob angrier than that ever. And believe me, I've had some online mobs mad at me before. Right. I had the entire state of Mississippi wanting to do some pretty damaging things to me for comments that I made. And that didn't come within a 10-foot pole of how bad it was on Orange Bloods.
Wow. That tells you. Yes, a good reminder for those of you that did not watch Game of Thrones. Chris reminds you no unborn kids were killed in the Red Banquet. Yes, exactly.
Allegedly, I don't know.
Yeah, right. It's true. That is true.
I'm not, but it was a wild night, people. It was wild.
Yeah. Man, oh man. All right. We
were
appreciate
no Kobe Blacks waiting to commit to Texas on that particular day.
Yeah, kind of interesting. 10 years later to the day, so much positivity going on around Texas football. Kobe Black will make his announcement at 4:20 this afternoon. The thought is that will be Texas. Ketch, how surprised would you be if he says anything but Texas today?
Pretty surprised. It's 1:55, and look, I'm not. Let me just check. I haven't missed anything.
Notice I did not ask for a percentage. I consider myself a friend. I'm just wondering how.
Well, it's a unique situation in that he's just gone silent. And there's no drama with nothing has happened in the last month that you would point to and say, aha, that happened. And now the recruitment is this way. It is since the summer, there hasn't been a peep out of that kid really.
Okay.
And no, he hasn't taken visits other than going for game day visits to Stillwater. It's so hard to believe that Oklahoma State, if they're it's one of these questions where it's like, who's number 2? The thought was always going to be that Texas A&M was the number 2, but they've never filled that gap.
Yeah.
There's a sense that he's going to stay close to home. His brother's at Oklahoma State. Would Oklahoma State, and the thing is, like, his brother, could leave as a grad transfer. He could go to the NFL. He could never play another season at Oklahoma State. There's never been a sense that he's going to go play with his brother. I won't say I would be shocked beyond belief, because I am self-aware of the uniqueness of this. I can't think of anybody else's recruitment. I called a source this weekend and I was like, hey, everything's still good with Kobe Black, right? And he was like, yes, per blank, and kind of let me know where that updated intel had come from. Texas did an in-home visit this week, but there's no sense that was significant in his recruitment. I will say this. We talked yesterday about specifically with Dominic McKinley, head coaches using their in-home visits and how strategically schools, depending on their position, will use those. Well, Texas went in-home with Kobe Black on Monday, and I'm pretty sure Sark wasn't there. Meaning
they think they're good.
You'd want to wait till your last one if there was any stress at all. Because it'd be a hell of a thing if this thing were really close for Sark to go in 2 days, 3 days before the announcement and hammer home the message. But it doesn't seem like Texas, they didn't send the whole staff. Like even if Sark had used it, if they felt like they really needed it, my God, every guy from Jeff Banks to the entire defensive staff would have been in that room if they felt like they needed it. And it didn't seem like on Monday night, when you see the pictures from that, that kind of anxiety didn't exist.
Okay. And again, 4:20, the announcement today for Kobe Black, 4:00, the special show on Orange Bloods Live. Get those notifications, like, subscribe. And we mentioned it. Jason Sucamel is going to be in Waco, letting you know exactly how it happens. You'll get the live reaction from Ketch and Alex and Jason Sucamel's reaction after it is over. Ketch, let me get a little kind of a 3-for-1. And I'll admit it's a personal 3-for-1 since it's an Aggie question. But you just mentioned Dominic McKinley. And earlier we talked in the recruiting discussion about Tai Anthony Smith, the linebacker out of Jasper, that now, according to what Orange Bloods is hearing, he's not going to be visiting Texas this weekend, correct? No visit scheduled.
Correct.
Okay. So if next Wednesday, if Tai Anthony Smith, Dominic McKinley, and Bussy all end up signing with A&M, how much of a calming of the waters would that be in your eyes?
Be a pretty big calming of the waters, I guess. All of those guys signing on the early signing date, it's not outside the realm of possibilities. Yeah, I don't know. It could mean a couple of things. I think the thing from 30,000 feet up, I think there would be something symbolic about that. But I don't know that means that nobody else is dipping.
Right.
So, but I think that would be a pretty big sign, because what that would mean is, well, Terry Bussey didn't flip to LSU or anywhere else.
Right.
Dominic McKinley's not holding out. And Tai Anthony Smith, despite constant pressure late in the recruiting cycle from Texas to at least come in for a visit, decided, no, I'll shut it down, and I'm just going to go to Texas A&M. It'd be certainly the best case.
Yeah. Names to look for, obviously, on both sides of the house divided as we get ready for next Wednesday, signing day. This Wednesday is not only Kobe Black Day. This Wednesday is SEC schedule day. They will release tonight at 6 o'clock on the SEC network. Longhorn fans, if you don't know where SEC network is, let me help you out. Uncle Chad will remind you, if you're a Spectrum customer like me, it's right next to LHN. LHN is at 383, if I'm not mistaken. 384 is SEC Network. Going to have to learn where that one is. And right below that is the SEC alternate channel, which is going to bring you some games during the season. There are simultaneous triple headers that will run in those early weeks of the season. So once your team is in the SEC, there's really not a game that could exist where you're not going to be able to see it on some television network. And obviously, you're a Texas fan, you're already getting that, but you're assured of that even more so when you get into the SEC. So Ketch, tonight, 6 o'clock, will be when we kind of get everything fleshed out. What I thought we could do today in the crap bag is just kind of take a look. I made a quick graphic for Blake talking about Texas, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. The three schedules that we know, how much we know, and what we don't. So we'll just take a quick look here. I left the gaps in there so we understand. These are the 14 weeks of the season. There are only 12 games, of course, so everybody gets 2 bye weeks. So Texas is that column on the left, obviously. First 4 games are set. The blank starts at the 28th, and we know Georgia is the 19th. So, Ketch, that's why I asked you to buy or sell the way I did. We know when the Oklahoma game is normally played. Doesn't it make sense to you to go Oklahoma on the 5th and then either put an easier game or nothing, or bye week before that Georgia game?
To me, it makes a lot of sense to have a bye on the 12th and the 23rd.
Yes.
But the 23rd is the Thanksgiving weekend, right?
The 20 – no. The
30th. Okay, the 30th is the Thanksgiving weekend. That's the day after Thanksgiving?
That is correct. The 30th is the Saturday after Thanksgiving because technically they've told us it's on that Saturday. Another thing I'm looking for today is House Divided, Egg Bowl, and Iron Bowl. Are they going to take any of those 3 and move them to either Thanksgiving or Black Friday? They're all 3, I think, have been listed as the 30th. So I want to see what that looks like tonight. But I agree with you, Ketch. That's not a bad idea to put a bye week there on the 23rd. The question, as you look over at A&M's schedule, would you give the Aggies a bye week after New Mexico State and even it out and say both are byes? Because then you're giving A&M an easier path in terms of New Mexico State. Now, look, I know they just whipped Auburn, so the Aggies should pay attention. But then a bye week, then Texas? Or do you take one of A&M's other conference games and stick it in there on the 23rd? As you'll see here, there's no non-conference games left for A&M to be put on the 23rd. Everything's been accounted for. So that might be something they need to take a look at.
I'll be honest, this is more than I can't even do it. I'm like looking at it and I'm like, well, you could put Oklahoma there and Florida there. It's like, well, wait a minute. They could do any of these combinations. Why am I even thinking about this? You're asking like where they should put buys. I think it's an interesting question about what they do with A&M and Texas on the 23rd. Just because of the way the map is scheduled, the 23rd feels late because the game's being played, because Thanksgiving is on the 28th, and it's that rare time where the first Thursday of November is the 7th. It doesn't happen very often, and usually it makes for the schedules really easy. But on these rare moments where the first Thursday is the 7th, then you get the Thanksgiving on the 28th. Like you said, this game is scheduled for the 30th. But if And so the championship games we played like on the 6th of December.
Yeah.
7th of December.
Right. Exactly.
As opposed to the first and second. This year it was on the 2nd, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that 5-day gap, we almost just have to recalibrate. I think, we've seen buys in that dead week before.
Yeah, and of course,
because and a lot of the times where we'd see it is because that game would be played earlier in the week. Texas has historically played a lot on Friday. So rather than create a short week, there had been weeks where they've had the week off leading into that.
Yeah, it's a good point. And then, of course, you see there on the 23rd, that's when Oklahoma will play Alabama, which brings up a question for the end of the year for Oklahoma. In their first non-Bedlam year, what does Oklahoma do at the end of their schedule? You see over to the right, the games that will fill in here. For Oklahoma, it is road games at Auburn, LSU, and Missouri. The game against Maine is obviously one of the non-cons. And then South Carolina and Texas need to be slotted. So those are kind of the games that they'll pick from in terms of Oklahoma. One interesting note, Ketch, the two teams in the SEC whose schedules apparently have been leaked already are Georgia and Ole Miss. So Blake, I think, found that Oklahoma or that Georgia schedule that's supposedly been leaked. I thought it'd be good to take a look at because obviously Texas is on it. If this is real, Ketch, look at this run from September 28th at Bama, Auburn at home, Mississippi State at home, at Texas, a bye week, cocktail party at Oxford, Tennessee at home. Holy mackerel. If that's it, that's quite a run. And you see where they're putting the buys for them. Bye on the 21st, bye on the 26th. As I pointed out to Blake earlier, if you want to just play math, you'd love to have 4 games bye, 4 games bye, 4 games.
Yeah.
If you want to do that version, that's the 28th and November 2nd would be your perfect days for bye weeks. But this is supposedly what Georgia's going to have, just to give everybody a look at it.
What was the other one that got released?
Ole Miss. Ole Miss schedule supposedly also was released. Obviously, Texas isn't a part of that. So I didn't think that would be.
ESPN was pretty pissed about the leak.
What's that?
ESPN was not happy about the leak.
I'm sure they weren't. Yeah, it's all supposed to come out tonight, especially with it being Georgia. They could almost live with Ole Miss. No disrespect to the Rebels, but right, you're talking about Georgia. Like, you want Georgia and Bama stuff to be the thing that you throw out. By the way, Bama has only 3 games that we've got to figure out. Missouri, South Carolina, and at Vanderbilt. Everything else has been determined. Ketch, this is Alabama's November, starting on the 9th. They go at LSU on the 9th. Then they have the pillow with Mercer on the 16th. Then they go to Oklahoma, and then they host Auburn. So we know it just depends on the team. We know the back end of Bama's schedule, not so much on the front. We know the front with Texas and Texas A&M and others. We don't know the back end, in completion. We'll know it all tonight. If you're one of those that is thinking about road trips, you're going to find that stuff out tonight. If you're a Texas fan that maybe is thinking, hey, what about Nashville? At Vandy? Yeah, that gets figured out tonight. And Ketch, right now, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, you still have 8 games that need to be slotted. There have only been 4 Vanderbilt games officially locked in. They've got 8 that will be figured out tonight, including home games against Texas, Tennessee, and who's the other one Vandy gets? Vandy has another brutal home game they have to deal with. But it is wild just to see what they'll get. I think it may be Georgia. I think it's Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee. They're going to host all 3 next year. It's just going to be something.
That.
Yeah, no, there's going to be some wild games. And then, of course, for you, if you're a home Texas fan, season ticket holder, Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi State. That'd be the other one. Blake, let's throw that schedule up one more time for Texas. Ketch, I want you to look at the Texas rundown. Tell me where you put the Gators. Where does Florida need to go in that schedule for Texas?
Well, if we reverse engineer this, OU on the 5th, right?
Right. Okay.
So I would put them on the 2nd.
You'd put them on November 2nd. Okay.
2nd.
That means would you start Texas with a home conference game on September 28th. Maybe put Kentucky or Mississippi State in that slot.
Yeah, I mean, the math, with only one road game still needing to be established, the math says there's a pretty good – otherwise, if it's not – you have to open up at home against a Big 12 team on the 28th, I would think.
SEC.
Or in the SEC, you wouldn't think they'd go by, and then their first official SEC game is on the 12th. Like, I don't think they'll do that. So I think you might see it'll be Kentucky or Mississippi State, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that lead up, it will be the first official game. Vandy will be somewhere in the middle because they're not going to have just a slew of home games between the 19th of October and the 11th of November or the 9th of November.
It really will depend on what you said earlier. Do they want us? Because I could make a good argument. Like A&M's end of schedule, it's not exactly, it doesn't feel the same to me, but I could make an argument for at Arkansas, bye week at A&M. Like if you're going to make Texas go at Arkansas and at A&M in the 2 out of their last 3 weeks, maybe the bye week makes sense there. I would probably put maybe they do the Arkansas Vandy trips back to back. Maybe you do something like that if you're going to stick the bye in that late. We'll find out tonight at 6:00, and a lot of excitement around that, especially for nerds like me that just love schedules. But also just to see what this whole thing's going to look like. Ketch, the other thing that's great about this to remember is the SEC, thanks to Texas and Oklahoma, thank you, Red River teams, is finally having to come to terms with its own scheduling. Now, there still will be some easy games. I'm not denying that part. But in conference, Ketch, they are all being required, all of them, to play 4 teams that were at the top this year and 4 teams that were at the bottom. That's not something the SEC has ever made them do. They're also forcing every SEC team, every one of them, has to play in non-conference either a Power 5 or a major independent. Now, the major independent does let you schedule something like UMass. I totally get that. I get it. But it also, Ketch, has a couple games here and there that I'm looking at today. Like, as an example, Vanderbilt. I was just skimming schedules, and I hit Vanderbilt looking at the fact that they still have 8 games to figure out. Texas is going there. But you know who else is going to go there? Virginia. They're going to play Virginia Tech on a neutral to start the season, and they're going to play SMU at home. And SMU is going to be in the ACC next year. So that's a Power 5 game. They're going to play 2 Power 5 non-conference games, technically.
Let's get juice for Vandy and SMU.
Right? I'm just saying. It's going to be baby steps, I think, in a lot of ways.
You know what that is the absolute proof of, Chad? The value of that old guarantee on the box. It's just like Tommy Boy said, he can shit in a box and put a label on it if you want me to. Suddenly, Vandy and SMU feels premium because of the guarantee on the box.
Power 5. It's a Power 5 game.
It is.
Power 5.
It has a guarantee on the box.
Commodores and ponies. And by the way, Ketch, if you're looking for a party in Nashville, when the folks from Dallas show up, if they make that trip, I bet you'll be able to party in Nashville in lots of ways.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
I've been in Nashville a lot over the years. It's always a good time.
Yeah.
You don't have to try hard.
Hey, and that's what I've been told. I've never done the trip myself, but I have been told, Texas fans, that it is one of those sneaky good ones that most fans don't think about. I've had South Carolina fans tell me it's a great trip. I had a Georgia fan tell me it's a great trip. I had an Auburn fan tell me it's a great trip. LSU people have told me it's a good trip. They'll always say that. Hey, don't forget Nashville. Don't forget Nashville. Don't forget Nashville. So Texas fans, you get the chance in year 1 if you want to do the Nashville trip. We find out tonight exactly where it will fall in your schedule. I'll guess November. I think it's going to be in November somewhere.
Can I give you just a mini Nashville story that is indicative of like what Nashville is?
Sure.
Me and another guy that you know and used to work with.
Yes. There are a few of those.
Yeah. No.
I am
we were in
Nashville
Nashville,
in that way.
and we're at a bar on a Friday night. and it's just Nashville crazy. I think that might have been the night that I vomited on the floor in a mid-conversation with somebody. There was a young woman who was inquiring about an internship, and could I help her get a media internship? And I puked at the bar and didn't miss a beat. And yeah, she stopped being interested, but I thought I played it off really well.
Yeah. You know what they say? You know what they say about you, Ketch. You know, when Ketch really gets going, there are no periods or exclamation points, but there might be vomit.
They threw me out of the bar. And I don't know why. My friend, your friend,
yes,
is making out with a woman who's having her bachelorette party. So the bride-to-be.
Yeah.
My friend and your friend is making out with this woman.
Okay.
And like hardcore. Not like hardcore, but as far as making out at a bar goes, pretty hardcore.
Serious PDA.
The next morning, we're at the hotel, and that bride and her party are coming through the hotel, and we cross paths, and it turns out that the woman that our friend made out with was getting married to an NFL player that day that he knew.
Wow. That's fantastic.
We got in a cab and went to the airport and never told a soul.
Damn. All right. I like it. That is a good Nashville story. You too could have those type of Nashville stories if you just get your schedule ready for tonight. You can make your plans. Start making your plans by late tonight. All right.
Nashville for you.
That is awesome. All right. So there's a little peek at some schedule stuff for the SEC. Real quick, crab bag birthdays. I mentioned Taylor Swift has a birthday today. She is not alone in the music world. Ketch, it's Morris Day's birthday today. He's 66. Happy birthday to Morris Day. How about this weird one? Imagine Morris Day in your head, right? You got Morris Day fixed in your mind. Steve Buscemi is exactly the same age. Nucky Thompson and Morris Day are the exact same age. They're both 66 today. Would you have believed that?
Maybe on Day. I got introduced to Morris Day so much earlier than Buscemi, you know, like
right. Yeah.
Buscemi
has always Buscemi's always felt like the young crazy guy in a movie, not the old crazy guy in a movie.
Except that was like 30 years ago when he was the young crazy guy in a movie.
Right. Yeah, exactly. If you made it
I don't know what, you know what? That's a great question. If you'd asked me before you just did that, how old each of them are, I don't know how I would have answered.
Oh, that's true. You're right. I should have done that. That one I should have done.
How old do you think Steve Buscemi is today? I don't know. I have no idea what I would have guessed.
All right. How about this? If I tell you that it is also Jamie Foxx's birthday today, how old do you think Jamie Foxx is today? If Morris Day is 66, how old is Jamie Foxx?
All right. So Jamie Foxx comes up in the 90s. 30 years ago would have been 1993. How old do I think he was in 1993? I'll say 22. So I'll say Jamie Foxx is 52.
56 today. You're right in the neighborhood. 56 years old for the talented Jamie Foxx. And Ketch, another member of the You Can't Stop Them even in their 90s club, has a birthday today. Dick Van Dyke is 98 years old today.
Damn, Dick.
Happy birthday to the chimney sweep himself, Mr. Fall Over the Ottoman, Dick Van Dyke. Love that guy. Love that guy. Happy birthday to Dick. All right. There's your crap bag for the day, Ketch. We've got I do need to show people a piece of pie before we leave, but you wanted to talk to me about Turnover Tuesday, I think, as well.
Well, yeah, I did. The turnover questions. What was the greatest turnover?
Oh, you already did that. Okay.
Yeah, we went through that.
Okay. The most painful turnover in your football team's history. That is
It's a painful discussion, but we don't ever talk about turnover. We'll do touchdowns and throws and hits. Never heard of a turnover discussion.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Now, I'll say in the house divided, my favorite house divided turnover is easy. Like, it's not even can you guess my favorite house divided turnover? Because it is so simple for me.
I mean, wasn't there an interception in the 91 game or the 93 game? I'm trying to remember. It feels like Morenz threw a pass that got intercepted and returned. I can't remember.
The Marcus Buckley interception, yes.
That's it. Okay.
Early in the game, turn throw. I think it's earlier than that. I want to say that was in the 80s, but the turn and throw and, the pick six to, start the game. It's one of my favorite. That's got to be my favorite turnover in that series. So, that is an interesting one, though. We talked about some Longhorn fans threw a lot of good ones in today of those turnovers that drive them a little crazy, including the one from the championship game with Garrett Gilbert and that crew.
The Roy Williams Superman's really a great one.
Because that game is so close. That turnover literally determines everything about that game, right? I mean, without that, Texas has a slim lead going into that moment.
And yet that play ends up being insignificant because Texas ends up going to the Big 12 championship game. So, the significance of that interception, that ball that falls into Lehman's hands, isn't that significant because Texas still makes it to the Big 12 championship game that year. So I'd still point to the Sims mistakes more so than the last Chris Sims interception when everybody at Texas Stadium was begging for Mac to just take the ball out of his hands.
Yep. No, that's it. That's got to be it. Yeah, you're right. That's even bigger ultimately than the Superman play. All right, so we did hit a little bit of that. A little turnover Tuesday on a Wednesday. Nothing wrong with that. We'll reset the Kobe Black decision coming up real quick. But first, I do want to show you a piece of pie. Now, you may not be a pie person, and that's fine. They got some other stuff for you. But if you are a pie person, look at this beauty right here at Hayes City Store. It is the best key lime pie I've ever had in my life. And I'll admit, I'm not like the biggest pie guy, but I do like certain pies, and I'm a key lime pie fan. And we had a neighbor that made the best key lime pie I had ever had until I met this beast. Look at that whipped cream on top. It's fresh made. You ever had that fresh made whipped cream where there's no chance it comes out of a can? That's what that is on top. And it's just so good. They bring you spoons. You just dig in with spoons. It's so good. Hayes City Store has great food all the way through, but be sure you finish with one of their great desserts. I'll show you at a later time, but you see that plate in the upper left, that little side of that with that piece of fruit, that strawberry? That's the berries heaven. We'll get to that on another day. Today we're focused on this key lime pie, and it is heavenly. If you love it, go check that out at Hayes City Store. They're out there on FM 150 in Driftwood. It's always a good time. HayesCityStoreTX.com. Hayes City Store. Follow them on Facebook. They'll throw up pictures of food for you. They'll let you know when the live music is happening. They've got that great stage out there, the beautiful shade trees. It is just a good time every time. There's your QR code. Shout out to Travis and Tamara and the crew at Hayes City Store. Travis, big Longhorn fan. I know they're excited about Texas and Washington. I need to check with him and see if he's headed to New Orleans. I got a feeling like he might be. You should be headed to Hayes City Store very, very soon. All right, Ketch. So we've got Kobe Black's decision coming up at 4:20 this afternoon. Ketch, as always, hardest working man in the business. He's going to be there on Orange Bloods Live with Alex Dunlap, ready to react to Kobe Black's commitment. Jason Sukamel, one of the other hardest working guys in the business, he'll be in Waco Conley High School for that official announcement. Anything else?
I got something.
Yeah.
South End Zone Queen. If you're out there.
The Queen.
She asked yesterday about the mystery guy at Washington.
Yes.
Dufree.
Uh-huh.
I did some investigation.
Okay.
Let's find out. Washington fans are pretty pumped up. He came from the NAIA level, didn't participate all season, but he was described as an impressive athlete, crazy testing numbers, and they think that they're going to turn him loose for the first time this season. The guy that I talked to didn't think that he would play more than 20 plays, but they're hopeful that in limited playing time, he does give them a little bit of a secret weapon boost.
And he is a D end, correct? He's an edge rusher.
Correct.
Gotcha. Interesting. And no film, like you said, right? No games, nothing.
He's never played at this level of football.
Dude. Well, that would be such a crazy. The only thing I could remember that would be sort of similar. Remember when we were kids? Were you watching college football when Brian Bosworth was at Oklahoma? You? Okay. Remember when Bosworth got knocked for was it pot? Right? Was it a positive pot test took him out of a bowl game? I think it was the Orange Bowl where he doesn't play, and the guy
what he tested for him.
And the guy that steps in for Brian Bosworth, I honestly can't remember his name right now. I want to say it was Bill something or other or whatever. But he had very little playing time at all. And the dude balled out in that bowl game. Like he was a stud that night, backing up Bosworth. That one I always think of. We've had a couple in college basketball when, was it Tyus Edney got hurt that year? Is that right? Who was the guy? Somebody got hurt for UCLA and Cameron Dollar steps in. Was it Edney? Do I have that name right? Right. And he gets hurt, and then Cameron Dollar. But I think Cameron stepped in for multiple games. This dude was just in a bowl game. So there you go. See, we're doing the work for you. We're Ketch isn't going to just let a name fly by. South End Zone. Hey, thank you for bringing him up.
She paid $2 for that super chat. I'm going to work for my $2. Unlike that story I told earlier where people didn't want to work for their money.
Didn't want to work, just wanted to play boggle.
That $2.
That is wrong. A couple super chats before we get out of here. Ben with $5 says, would this admin have the guts to tell Mac no? I think so. I'm not sure what that reference is. It's going back to the bank.
The admin in control now, led by Kevin Altife, the Board of Regents director.
Okay, sorry. Got you.
If they were in charge in 2013, would they have had the guts to tell Mac no? I think so too, because I think if that had been the group, that had been the leadership behind the Saban discussion, I'd feel a lot more confident that might have gotten done. If we're being completely honest, like the people who were in charge of that Saban stuff, it's kind of a clusterfuck. I mean, that shouldn't have ever got out. It got out and was uncomfortable. They weren't able to really pull that together in a way that kept, it was a mess.
Ben, thank you for that super chat. All right, Ketch, this super chat from Paul references for him one of his worst turnovers. And for me, this is one of the greatest plays in NFL history, and I think it's the greatest defensive play in the history of the Super Bowl. I'd forgotten about it. Paul, 499, Kurt Warner, interception for a touchdown against the Steelers in the Super Bowl. Cards were about to be tied or take the lead. Instead, they're down 10. My wife would tell you this is one of her best moments because she's a Steelers fan. Ketch, I'm pulling for the Cardinals in that game. I wanted them to win. I wanted Kurt Warner to win win one with multiple teams and all that. I've never seen a play like what James Harrison did in that moment. I don't know that you and I will ever see a better defensive play by one person in a Super Bowl ever.
It's hard to argue,
right? I mean,
it doesn't get more impactful than that.
God, just an incredible play. And for it to be, it is the perfect example too of you cannot have a pick six or scoop and score that's more impactful than that. Yardage wise, game wise, importance wise. One team is about to even it up. The other team goes back up multiple scores, and you're literally on the 1 yard line. So the play has to go 100 yards. The play went the entire field, and you score on defense. It was just incredible. Shout out to James Harrison, one of the greats and one of the best defensive plays I've ever seen in my life. Thank you for that, Paul. Yes, that discussion did come up today. Ketch's turnover question about the most painful turnovers for you as a fan. Texas fans have been throwing theirs in today. You can imagine some of the ones that have been mentioned. We've kind of focused in on maybe that interception against Colorado in 2001 might be the one, certainly from that decade. Ketch, anything else we need to add at this point on Kobe Black before we get to 4 o'clock and the 420 decision?
Not really, other than I want to remind everybody at 4, Football with Friends, as it's normally scheduled, is scrapped. Alex and I are going to come on at 4. We'll do some pregame, pre-announcement discussion. We've got video. In fact, Blake, we have it ready to go, right? Why don't we do this? Let me tell everybody.
Okay.
Be Alex and I. Jason will be in Waco. We've got Adam Gorney scheduled to join us at 4:40. I think the plan will probably be to go from like 4 to 5. And we'll have Gorney in between there. And so it'll be like wall-to-wall, Kobe Black for an hour. But we've got footage of Kobe Black. If those watching the show right now have never seen what all the fuss is about, we can show them some fuss right now, Chad.
Okay. Do we get to comment on the fuss, or are we just watching the fuss?
Blake, we can talk over it, right?
Okay. We can do a watch along with Kobe Black. All right.
Well, can we go full screen with the video and still have us talking over it?
There we go. There it is.
There we go. The thing about Kobe Black is he's wildly athletic.
Man,
he's one of these guys that you'll see make plays on both sides of the ball, but he's got great size. He's a great athlete. He's an instinctual player.
Receiver.
He's a guy that I think could just as easily be a starting wide receiver at this level as a defensive back. People keep calling him a safety. He's not. He's a corner all the way, and he brings exactly the type of skill and athleticism in a big package that you want.
So looks like there's a kickoff return. Yeah, that's not bad. Oh, I think he might make the corner. Are they going to catch him? No. Wow. Nice burst. 6'1" for Kobe Black. Is that right?
Yeah.
Little pass out into the flat.
And again, I think one of the things that you really like about him is that his older brother he's better than his older brother, and his older brother's a really good Big 12 player.
Mm-hmm.
Great
handoff.
When you start thinking about, guys, can they adjust and make the adjustment to the next level? You always love it when someone in the immediate family has done that, and he's, his older brother's a few years older than him, but literally is a guy that's still playing college football and just coming off of a really good season.
Also, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and it will be interesting to see what happens with his brother, given that there's been a lot of conversation that he could end up in the portal.
Testing Kobe Black. That didn't go well. I feel like that guy might not have run the right route there. That didn't go well at all. You see him on offense here too, even if he's not going to turn into, even if it doesn't turn into a Charles Woodson type story, looks like he's got good enough hands, obviously, that he's playing receiver. He's in at running back at times. So at the very least, you can trust his hands at corner.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, he's a hell of a football player.
Yeah.
You probably could get away with just listing him as an athlete. There's not much that we haven't seen him do on this video, right? We've seen him make plays on special teams, running back, receiver, corner. He's a physical player. He's not a guy that, you watch it sometimes and feel like they're going to have to teach that component of football to him. So he's just really good. He's really good. And when a year ago, Jelani McDonald was making his decision and he picked Texas, one of the things that everybody wondered in real time when it happened was, does this give Texas an advantage in the recruitment of Kobe Black in the following year? And the answer is probably yeah. From the moment they were able to get McDonald, this became more and more likely. It's one of the reasons why I put in a future cast for him way back in February.
Yeah, good stuff. Always good to see that highlight video. So that would be from last season, not this past season, but the previous season. Is that correct, Blake?
I think so. That's from the junior highlights, right, Blake?
Junior
Correct.
highlights. Yeah. Okay. So that's his junior highlights, obviously going through the senior year at this point. Kobe Black will make his decision at 4:20 this afternoon. 6 o'clock this evening is the SEC schedule release on SEC Network. Did Georgia and Ole Miss really get leaked? We'll find out. But more importantly, you'll find out where your Longhorns are going to be playing. If you're like me and you're following the Aggies, you want to know where they're going to play. We'll find that out. And I am interested to see what they do with some of Oklahoma's schedule. We know Oklahoma gets to host Alabama, but there's some other games that I'm interested to see kind of what they choose to do, because they go to Auburn, LSU, and Missouri next year. Where do they slot those games in for Oklahoma? It's going to be a lot of fun to check it out and think forward on that one tonight as well. So it's a busy Wednesday. And oh, by the way, we're a week away from National Signing Day. And you're going to want to be right here with Orange Bloods Live. And, of course, on orangebloods.com to get the very latest info. Tomorrow night is your war room. Your last war room before National Signing Day is tomorrow night on a Thursday. Always remember that. We also have an Outsiders for you tonight. What are you drinking Wednesday at 9? The first show on Orange Bloods Live that'll get to react to the SEC scheduling will be the Outsiders tonight. We'll see what Chance, Mock, and Bo and Jason think of that. Actually, we may not have Jason Dick tonight on the Outsiders. I've never heard of this, Ketch, but apparently he's got a softball team he's a part of, and they have a triple header today. So he feels like he needs to go give the team his focus.
Well, if you show up today, you play in 3 games, and then you're like one of those guys that's consistently there for your team. Like, right? How many games in a row have you played? 4. That's it.
Right.
That might only encompass like 2 days worth of a ball, but you've been there. If you miss today, it's like you missed a quarter of the season.
Yeah, it's crazy. Not even Ernie Banks said, let's play 3, but apparently they're playing 3 today. So we got all that coming up for you on Orange Bloods Live. Ketch, anything else we need to hit today before we get out of here?
I just have one random comment.
Okay.
This week, at the end of the year, every year, I will spend a week where I just do a deep dive into the music that was. So all I do is listen to music from 2023 all week long. Okay. And there's no rhyme or reason. Like there will be one day where I'll just do nothing but country, and one day I'll do nothing but hip hop. And I mean, a lot of stuff I've already heard, but I'm pulling up every list I can find to listen to every song I can listen to so that I can completely digest what's believed to be the best of 2023 so that I can make my own best of list.
Okay.
Why does it seem like women are the only ones making good music? I feel like I've been listening to 2023 music for 3 straight days, just nothing but current stuff. And the best stuff, all by women. All by women. You'll come like across an occasional Chris Stapleton song and you'll be reminded. It's like, oh, yeah, Stapleton's a badass. And that's one of the best songs I've heard this year. But in general, it's just like woman after woman after woman after woman just cranking out badass songs. I don't know where the men are.
I think it may be definitely some of both. I thought of Stapleton as you were talking. So yeah, his album Higher is very good. I don't think it's his best, but I think it's very good. Have you heard are you familiar with Noah Khan?
Yes.
Have you heard Stick Season?
No.
That is an album that was released this year. I would go check out Noah Khan's Stick Season. There's an extended version of it. You can choose kind of the first version or a second slightly expanded version. He was just on Saturday Night Live. I dig him. We're actually going to go see him in concert next year. And my daughter has fallen for Noah Khan along with a buddy of mine.
You know what? I listened to his song with Post Malone, Dial Drunk.
Yes, Dial Drunk. And that's one of the ones he did on SNL. I think that's a really good record.
Thing is, I'm telling you, the women are killing it.
So give me an example of something you've been listening to that you really love from 2023.
Well, if we just like current music, So
Right. Stuff from this year.
Completely random. Chappelle Rowan. I think that's how you say her name. She's got a song, Red Wine Supernova, that's dope. Olivia Rodrigo, I think, has like 5 songs that are all sick. Dua Lipa. Billie Eilish has a song out this year. Carly Rae Jepsen has a song out. Doja Cat. Paramore. Lana Del Rey. On the countryside, I think the best song I've heard on the countryside all year is from Lainey Wilson, Water Moonshine. I don't know if you've heard that song.
I have not. What's it called again? Water what moonshine?
Watermelon Moonshine.
Watermelon Moonshine. I do like Lainey Wilson. She is a sexy, talented thing, man.
Megan Maroney on the countryside has a song out called Sleep on My Side, which is a banger. There's a great Miranda Lambert song out this year where she does a song with Leon Bridges, If You Were Mine. There's another Lainey Wilson song called Heart Like a Truck. There's a woman named Margot Price that did County Road. Like, I'm telling you, like, everywhere you look, there is a woman putting out a banger of a song regardless of the genre. I'll give you a few more that I like, okay? There's a song from a woman named Victoria Monet called On My Mama. It's a banger. There's a song I See You from Coco James. Beyonce's got a song out, My House. Everywhere I look, there's women putting out bangers. And I just don't know where the men are.
Interesting. Real quick, just because it's in your area, are you aware of this Chris Stapleton, Miranda Lambert show in 2024?
No.
If you're interested, pre-sale's going on now. I think the general sale is this Friday. It's Stapleton with Miranda Lambert opening at Minute Maid, and it is like August. It's like a Saturday, August 24th of 2024. Okay. They just added the show. They added an Arlington show, and they added this Houston show, and Miranda is at the Houston show. So if you are so inclined, that is available this week. Ketch, you are a teenage girl.
So are you? It's a question.
Oh, are you a teenage girl? Zane wants to know. Because you are listening to a lot of stuff my teenage daughter's into right now.
But here's the thing. Like, here's my process. I pull up every single best songs list I can find. And I one by one go through the songs. And then I'll get to a point where I will go, all right, now I'm just going to focus on a genre. I can't control what's making all of the lists, but I don't want to miss anything.
Right.
The only way this works is if I go outside of my comfort zone and listen to everything that's been heralded that I haven't listened to.
And so, again, your ultimate goal is to be able to put together a best songs list from 2023, or is it albums, or what is it?
On Sunday for 10 Thoughts from the Weekend, I will have a top 10 song list. My top 10 songs from all genres, a top 10 list. But then I'll almost certainly have separate top 10s for each genre. I'll have a country top 10. I'll have an R&B, a hip hop, a rock. I usually do like a metal list. Like, I'll try to I will cram an entire year into a week.
That is wild.
Any song I like, I put into a Spotify list.
So
then on Saturday and Sunday, I'll start thinking about slotting them in genres.
Okay. And just in case my daughter asks, do you think there will be a Taylor Swift song in your top 10 list of 2023?
Yes.
Is there something on Midnights that you think is worthy of songs of the year?
I don't know. She has those secret songs that got she had like the archive songs.
Right.
That, like, Is It Over Now is probably going to be on my list.
Okay.
That's you've got You're Losing Me, but that's also like from the archives, like a song that didn't get released, it got released. I don't know if there's anything on. Yeah. Someone asked if I had a Zach Bryan song. There is a Zach Bryan song. He did a song with Casey Musgraves called I Remember Everything that I think is a pretty fantastic song.
That's a guy I've never heard. I know Zach Brown. I don't know I've heard the name Zach Bryan, but I've not heard a song yet.
Very good song. It'll probably make my country top 10 list.
Fair enough. Okay. Sounds good. I like it. That just more reasons to check out orangebloods.com. I mentioned that the War Room is always on Thursday nights. Every
Juju Juice. Some of the lyrics on these Olivia Rodrigo songs do not need to be listened to by a 9-year-old.
No. Yeah, they definitely don't. Juju, thank you for the comment.
Let you know, if your 9-year-old is listening to Olivia Rodrigo and she's listening to like Vampire or Bad Idea, right? Like,
yeah,
that's grown-up music. By the way, Chad, my favorite Stapleton song of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You want to take a guess?
Your favorite Chris Stapleton song of the year.
It's on the.
So it has to be on higher then.
Yes.
Right? If it's from let's see. I've listened to that album
in concert.
I've listened to that album all the way through once and a half.
It is not White Horse. Listen to Loving You on My Mind. It's Stapleton doing a sex song.
Yeah, it's a good song. Yeah, I'm remembering it. It's a good song. Yeah, that album is like Chris Stapleton in a really chilled out mood to me. It's a very chill album. You know, there's some good just positivity, like love songs, like chilled out love songs from him. It's really good. That's a put on the album and get relaxed kind of an album. It's not going to be my favorite.
Juice. I can say that a song is a banger. You're allowed to say that up till 50.
That's up till 50.
I'm still under 50, so I can say banger.
You can say banger. There you have it. Be on the lookout for that. The top 10 songs of 2023 as judged.
But there's going to be a lot of women on the list is what I'm telling you.
There's going to be women in that top 10. Get ready. Call the women in your life and tell them. South End Zone Queen, you heard it here first. Sunday evenings is when 10 Thoughts from the Weekend hits.
My top 10 songs of the year.
It is coming. He's doing his work. He's doing his research. All right. I think we hit it all. I think we hit everything. If you missed it earlier, just a couple quick portal combat kind of notes. Dante Moore, quarterback from UCLA. He's going to visit Oregon, and so is Andrew Makuba, going to visit Oregon as well. Ketch, would you tell a Texas fan real quick? Would you tell a Texas fan to just forget about the Makuba idea?
Probably.
Or do you think is there still a chance?
Are you telling me so you're telling me there's a chance?
Okay.
But I don't know how to get past. I think if they'd figured out a way to get through his credits situation, I think he'd be at Texas visiting this weekend. That he's not, I think, speaks to how problematic that situation and finding a resolution that everybody's happy for. If he can only transfer in 60 hours, he can only transfer in 60 hours. And I think every Texas fan has to think about transfers a little bit like that. The older they are without being a grad transfer, the more difficult it is to transfer in. Almost the sweet spot is getting a guy who is either a sophomore or like redshirt sophomore, a guy that isn't close to graduating, but has the ability to transfer a full 60 over.
Gotcha. Real quick, Catch. South End Zone Queen jumping back in says Makuba Texas visit scheduled. Based on what, and she is saying that On3 just reported it. LOL. So we will double check on that one. Maybe Makuba did find a way to get something.
Well, that's funny because On3 literally reported 3 hours ago that he was visiting. On3, make up your mind.
Mercy go. Maybe he's doing both. You told me there was a guy that was going to do like Austin and Oxford in one weekend.
Well, there was a report literally 2 hours ago from On3 that he was going to be visiting Oregon this weekend. If he's visiting Texas this weekend,
No, I didn't say this weekend. She just said the visit had been scheduled. Didn't necessarily say it was this weekend.
Okay. Well, I will check that out. Something I'll do as soon as I'm done here.
Speaking of checking it out, Ketch, here's another name that would jump in. Have you listened to Tyler Childers yet?
No.
Someone is recommending Rustin' in the Rain album. I had a friend turn me on. In fact, my buddy Rick has been trying to get me forever to listen to Tyler Childers, and I've listened to a little bit of it now, and I get it. Really good singer, songwriter, country kind of stuff. So if you haven't checked him out, that I believe the Rustin' in the Rain came out this year.
Okay. I'll check it out.
Tyler Childers, good stuff there too. Good male artists, good female artists. Everybody's putting out music in 2020.
But the women are doing it better is what I'm saying.
Ketch thinks the women
It's not even close.
Better music.
It's so not close, Chad, that I'm formed this opinion. You know, if it was like 60-40, I wouldn't notice. 70-30, I might be like, interesting. It's like 80-20, man. For every 10 songs I listen to that I think are good, 8 of them are being produced by women.
Okay. Somebody's asking about John Pardee. You into John Pardee at all? Heard any of that?
Not yet. It's still early. It's Wednesday. I haven't even gotten into, I will say this, I haven't seen anybody that's listed John Pardee on any of the lists that I've seen for best songs of the year. There
you go. All right, as we get out of here, Christopher is saying there's a Makuba OV tomorrow. That would not be the weekend. That'd be sliding it in before the weekend. Christopher.
Well, and then maybe that's a sign that they've figured out a way to work through these credits things. That he wants to be a Longhorn, I think, and they want him to be a Longhorn. There have been some academic hurdles that need to be cleared. Maybe that's a sign that they've been cleared. I haven't heard officially one way or the other. I'll follow up on that. Maybe have an update in the 4:00 Kobe Black reaction hour that we'll be doing. Stay tuned.
Yeah, there you go. Also, little weird note. Somebody said the judge rules NCAA athletes who transferred twice are immediately eligible to play. Thank you, Texas TV, for that one. We'll check into that story. And another musical opinion on the way out. Lainey Wilson, probably the best country artist right now, man or woman. Thank you, C. Sherman, for that one as well. Thanks to everybody who was in the Specs chat today. Juju just says, read the chat. Yeah, it's a good idea. Read that chat every day. Maybe go back. You can go back and watch the show again and read through every comment in the chat if you like. Thanks to everybody for jumping in the chat. Thanks to Specs for all their great work. Let's give them 15 seconds of Specs, Blake, before we get out of here. Lisa, the rabbit, and everything you need for your holiday parties. Here we go.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All right. Kobe Black announcement at 4:20. The Kobe Black show is at 4 o'clock right here on Orange Bloods Live. Get those notifications, like, subscribe. That's coming up at 4. We've got the Outsiders tonight at 9. And Ketch, wish me luck, because this is now the first week after the season where I'm going to be trying to get Brian Jones to still come on the show. We're still in that time period where I think he will take the communication. I think he'll still say yes, especially since his team is in the playoff. So tomorrow we are hoping for Brian Jones at 1:20 to get his thoughts on SEC schedules for next year, but also get his thoughts on Texas and Washington and Bama and Michigan this week, as we are less than 3 weeks away. So that's coming up tomorrow and Thursday, plus obviously a lot of reaction to Kobe Black's commitment and to the SEC schedules tonight. All that's coming up on a Thursday show. Thanks to everybody for being a part of it. Thanks to Blake, the super producer, for all his great work. And remember, once again, 4 o'clock, the Kobe Black commitment show with Ketch and Alex and Jason Sukamel in Waco. When Kobe Black makes his announcement, you will hear it first right here on Orange Bloods Live and get all the reaction and jump in the chat right here on Orange Bloods Live. Thank you for all your support. Until high noon tomorrow, we are house divided.